Chapter 196. News at Wukong Mountain. Shifeng had a face full of fury. Why? Pei Yuan was helplessly apologetic. Too far. Even if we tell him, he won't be able to get back. Unless he is Jindan, he can't get back in 3 days. Then I won't go to Bright Wave Jia. I'll go get him. Shifeng said decisively. Nonsense. Pei Yuan was furious. Looking at the pain and anger on Shifeng's face, he suppressed the anger inside and said in a low voice, "There are so many experts in Bright Wave Jia. Whether our sect can establish ourselves in Bright Wave Jia, it all depends on us Jindan. In our time of need, will Shimi abandon the entire sect for just Swordsmanship?" Shifeng bit her lips, tears flowing down uncontrollably. Pei Yuan relaxed his tone of voice. "Shimi, don't worry. Swordsmanship is usually clever. He definitely will be fine. After we establish ourselves in Bright Wave Jia, we can send people to search for him." Pei Yuan comforted Shifeng for a long time, before she was finally persuaded. When Lin Qian saw Pei Yuan he saw the other's face was dark, and assumed that Pei Yuan was worried for the future. He comforted, "Sect leader Pei, do not worry too much. This one has some weight in Bright Wave Jia, and will definitely pick a good land for your sect." Pei Yuan raised his hands in thanks, but he stared at Lin Qian and said solemnly, "This one still has one thing that he does not understand. Master Lin, please explain a few things to me." "Oh, please speak, sect leader Pei," Lin Qian said. "Master Lin has no connection to our sect, so why have you been so close with our sect as of late?" Pei Yuan's eyes were bright. Lin Qian seemed to have already known that Pei Yuan would ask this, and smiled. "If that's the case, then I will speak the truth. It is because I see potential in Wei Sheng. Wei Sheng is the most talented Xiuzhi that this one has ever seen. He has unbridled potential and his future will certainly be boundless. Sect leader Pei can think of this as an investment. In the future, when I need help, please sect leader Pei, lend a hand." Naturally. Pei Yuan's heart relaxed slightly, even though he didn't believe all of it, but he didn't let it show. Lin Qian smiled and said, "We will temporarily set our departure at noon 3 days from now. This one will be waiting and won't disturb sect leader Pei now. Farewell." "I won't see you off," Pei Yuan said, raising his folded hands. Swordsmanship and Bofeng had made 2 good transactions, the aura between them very harmonious. Chang Heng and Gui Feng were not interested in Golden Crow Fire, something Swordsmanship felt was very regretful about. However, before leaving, Swordsmanship asked them to spread the news of the Golden Crow Fire, and Bofeng agreed. Swordsmanship saw Bofeng and the others leave. "What are you going to do?" Pu Yao suddenly asked. Swordsmanship inhaled deeply, and then exhaled, as though he wanted to push out all the darkness that had formed in his heart. "I'll take it step by step." Pu Yao smiled coldly. "You didn't receive one bit of information. TSK, seems those old codgers don't value you very much." Swordsmanship was silent. "Plan on flying back?" Pu Yao didn't have any sympathy. "There's not enough time." Swordsmanship shook his head. "From the desolate wood reef to Wukong Mountain, flying would take multiple months." "Don't worry," Pu Yao said unconcernedly. "Even if the Yaomao come, it would be small groups. Probably just Nightstalk Yao and Moon Demon, nothing important." "Nightstalk Yao and Moon Demon? Are they very strong?" Swordsmanship asked curiously. He didn't know much about Yaomao. "Little worms." Pu Yao twisted his mouth. "About the same as Ningmai." "Then why is everyone fleeing?" Swordsmanship could not understand. "If they are about the same as Ningmai, we can completely kill them." Pu Yao smiled scornfully. "Whether Nightstalk Yao or Moon Demon, if they face your Ningmai, they can fight 1 against 3. His bloody pupils suddenly rippled. "Their growing environment is much more cruel than you guys." "So what?" Swordsmanship wasn't persuaded. "Sky Moon Jia has Jindan." Pu Yao shrugged indifferently. "This is just the beginning. I am willing to bet. No, guarantee that the old codgers of your sect are definitely planning on migrating away. Who is willing to bleed themselves to help other people stop Yaomao? Wukong Mountain is the base of our sect. You are too naive." Pu Yao's words were full of scorn. "Just a poor mountain. As long as they have people, where can't they go? Without the mountain, they can go steal another one. Zuemo couldn't speak. Prepare early, Puyao shook his head. I won't have any time in the near future, don't bother me. He disappeared after finishing. Zuemo stood at his spot. He was unfocused for a moment. He could not think that the entire front line of Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia had collapsed in such a short period of time. This was the news that he traded with Bo Feng. Supposedly, it was a group of Yaoma that had appeared at the flank and caused the collapse of the entire defensive line which fortified Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia. Sky Moon Jia was not immediately next to Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia, but it wasn't far from it, so it was in a very dangerous situation. Many sects of Sky Moon Jia had already started to prepare for migration. This was the news from 5 days ago. What had frozen Zuemo's heart was that he had not received any news from his own sect. News from 5 days ago, with Wukong Sword Sect's present status, they couldn't be ignorant of it. If he moved now, he couldn't meet up with the sect unless the sect migrated to Little Mountain Jia. But if they were going through Little Mountain Jia, they would have notified him so he could prepare to receive them. But he hadn't received anything. He knew that he was set on a different path from the sect after this incident. He wasn't sad. In reality, when he had came out of the Sword Essence formation, he had sensed it coming, but he hadn't thought the day would come so quickly. The present Wukong Sword Sect had long not been the Wukong Sword Sect of the past. Never mind, he should think of way to protect himself. It was better to rely on himself than on others. Zuemo's idea was quite different than anyone else. He decided to keep guarding Desolate Wood Reef. Desolate Wood Reef's environment was special. Adding on the Skyring Moonchime formation and the Golden Armor Guards, he could basically guarantee his own safety. If it was needed, he could enter Little Mountain Jia through the Jia River at any time. But before that he needed to increase his own strength. Otherwise, with his Yuji cultivation and despite his large wealth of Jingshi, not a piece of him would remain. If he left, he would take the shitty with him. He had found all the materials for the 5 Essence sword set. Also his cultivation, which hadn't moved for such a long time, finally had started to grow. At this time, it was better to control his personality and increase his own strength before anything else. The reforging of Waterdrop Sword was very quick, only taking 1 day. He added a piece of 4th grade Crimson Fire Rock. Even though that did not elevate it to 4th grade, it rose to the top of 3rd grade. The outer layer of the Waterdrop Sword had an additional aura of bright red flame that constantly burned. Zuemo renamed it Water Fire Sword. The teeth vine was soaked in a Ling Spring. There were no Ling Springs on the Desolate Wood Reef. This Ling Spring was one that Zuemo made himself using formations. The effect was not as good as natural Ling Springs. Zuemo could only increase the time it spent in the water. The 10 days it should have taken to forge were extended to 30 days by Zuemo. The blue icicle crystal, the breath rock, and the fox teeth were all 4th grade materials. It was almost impossible for Zuemo at present to forge them. He could only process them into sword billets. When his cultivation reached Ningmai and he had absorbed Golden Crow Fire, could he finish the forging? All of his other time was spent on meditation. In this period of time, even Puyao, who usually disdained Zuemo's cultivation, intelligently chose to remain silent. Also, Puyao was very busy in this time. Zuemo received a flying sword message from his master. On there, it said that Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia had collapsed, and the sect decided to move to Brightwave Jia. She told Zuemo to be careful and protect himself. It also told him he could enter other sections. If there was a chance, he could also go to Brightwave Jia to find them. Zuemo put the flying sword message into his ring and turned back to his meditation. On the Desolate Wood Reef, the Black Lake had been completely transformed. The inky black pond water now glowed darkly. On the shore, a simple and old-fashioned stone altar had taken form. 30-something little Yao guards continuously took water from the black water pond and poured it onto the stone tiles of the altar. The stone tiles were like sponges. No matter how much black water was poured onto the surface, they didn't leave one drop behind. Puyao looked at the altar, not saying a word. The number of Xiozha that passed through Desolate Wood Reef increased over the days. At the beginning, there were little crowds. After a while, it turned to a continuous flow. The power of the Skyring Moonchime formation was much higher than before, so the consumption of Jingshire was also much higher. Each day, it needed 20 pieces of third-grade Jingshire to remain active. However, even though it was very expensive, but the strength exuded by the Brahma sound ring and the Skyring Moonchime formation prevented the passing Xiuzha from daring to have any greedy thoughts. The rumors were that the Black Wind bandits had attacked the desolate wood reef, but ended up all being annihilated. There were also rumors that Zhuemo was selling golden crowfire. As long as they could pay the price or had good things to trade, they could buy it at any time. Each Xiuzha that came onto the island would ask around about these two pieces of news when they landed. As the flow of people increased, Zhuemo's daily income also shot up. However, he didn't have any time to put on it. Each day, he furiously meditated, hoping to quickly break through to Ningmai. In comparison, Lil Pagoda was living very well these past days. The large amounts of talismans and materials that Zhuemo had gotten from the Black Wind bandits were quite good. Since Zhuemo could not use them, and there was no place he could sell them, he decided to feed it all to Lil Pagoda. Lil Pagoda flowed with light. Compared to the fragility of the past, it seemed to be brimming with life. The tip of the tower that had been as sharp as a sword was now much more round. The slender body seemed much broader. The past 5-colored pagoda gave people the feeling of darkness and sharpness. Now it was more lively and nimble. The aura of killing was much smaller. What Zhuemo felt most strange about were the 5 little gourds appeared on the eaves of the first level. The 5 little gourds were all of different colors, belonging to the 5 elements. They were the size of a grain of rice. If Zhuemo did not look closely, he wouldn't have found them. Zhuemo and Lil Pagoda communicated many times on the use of the 5 little gourds. Lil Pagoda tried very hard to explain, but Zhuemo didn't understand even after a long time. Full of anticipation, Zhuemo couldn't do anything except throw the question to one side. To Zhuemo's joy, Lil Pagoda spat out a piece of gray mud again. It was slightly larger than last time, about the size of his thumb. Zhuemo put the little bit of gray mud into his ring. The other Shidi also knew now that the sect had already left Sky Moon Jia. Everyone's mood became terrible. Some people joined other sections. Zhuemo didn't stop them. In situations like this, they were certainly free to enter other sections. Power and responsibility were tied together. The sect surrendered their responsibilities to them. Accordingly, they also surrendered the power to constrain them. All of Zhuemo's efforts were put on cultivation. He could feel his cultivation progressing extremely quickly. On a certain day, he finally started his charge at Ningmai. Chapter 197 Ningmai. The Ling power inside Zhuemo's body was thick like a cloud as it filled his channels. If it was not being channeled, they would be abnormally quiet and flow extremely slow as though they had stopped. This was a characteristic unique to Zhuji Ling power. The Ling power in Zhuemo's body was thick like rain clouds, showing that his cultivation had reached the peak of Zhuji. The reason that his cultivation had grown so rapidly recently was all due to a strange repulsion at the little holes in his dantian. Before any Ling power he absorbed would spill from the little holes. Right now, the holes still existed, but the Ling power in his dantian would not spill and leave. Zhuemo was very suspicious that this strange repelling force was caused by the draw of earth energy away from his body, as this began occurring after the earth energy had tempered his body. However, the mysteries of channels were not something a little person like Zhuemo could understand. He quickly threw it to the back of his mind and started to cultivate. The cloud-like Ling power relentlessly circulated in his body. Zhuemo had already maintained this for 4 hours. His Ling power was active while his mind and body were all at their best condition. He started to charge into Ningmai. All the Ling power in his body were roused. They started to flow through the channels at a speed Zhuemo was familiar with. Ningmai, or concentrating channels, required condensing the mist-like Ling power into liquid form Ling power. The simplest way was to continuously absorb Ling power, thus increasing the density of Ling power, causing it to condense from gas into liquid. However, the process was not so simple when this condensation occurred in real life. After one's cultivation reached the peak of Zhuji, they would encounter resistance when they absorbed Ling power. If they could not absorb Ling power, they could not increase the density of Ling power. Many people found themselves stuck at this gate into Ningmai. There were many ways to break through to the stage of Ningmai, such as Lingdan. The markets would sell Ningmai Dan. The success rate was high, but not everyone liked to use them. Different than Juji, those in Ningmai stage started to comprehend the laws of the world. The breakthrough to Ningmai was a wonderful opportunity to comprehend all kinds of laws. Xiuzhe who had confidence and high aspirations for themselves usually would not choose the Ningmai Dan, but to comprehend by themselves. Zuo chose to comprehend it himself. With his present wealth it was very easy to buy a Ningmai Dan, but he was understood that the easier the beginning was the easier it was to trip at later stages. If he walked more steadily at the beginning, even if he suffered more, the beneficial it would be for him later. He had grown in this half year, and with the recent battle he had grown rapidly. This kind of growth was not just in cultivation and formations, it was also the growth of his mind. Continuously encountering certain things caused him to understand many things. Even though it was hard to change his habit of taking shortcuts when possible, but regarding cultivation, he was abnormally steadfast. Carefully channeling the Ling power in his body, his spiritual leaf hand opened like a flower. Any change in his Ling power would be instantly detected by the leaf hand. Using spiritual power had become Zuomo's instinct. After he started embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation, he became used to using his consciousness in any situation. This habit had given him many benefits. He became even more determined to persist in this habit. The mist-like Ling power continuously magnified in front of his eyes. He could even see tinier wisps of Ling power swimming within. They were like a group of tadpoles. They appeared to be one, but the interior was made up of countless little entities. There was a weak attraction between wisps of Ling power, but as the Ling power in the channels continued to increase, there was a kind of repulsion that occurred between the Ling power. The amount of Ling power in the channels had reached a limit. For some reason, Zuo suddenly thought of Wukong Mountains, thought of the time that he had been farming in Ling fields at Wukong Mountain. A faint sorrow slowly flowed at the bottom of his heart. The Ling power inside his body seemed to feel his emotions and instantly slowed down. It took only a short while for Zuo to fight his way out of the sadness. The world could not be predicted. He had started to learn how to deal with these emotions. He didn't hold any hatred towards Wukong Sword Sect. The sect leader's choice was not wrong at the core. With the exception of a few conservative and extremely old sects, the great majority of sects were extremely mobile. He just had never thought this would happen to him. Focusing, Zuo controlled his thoughts and brought his attention back on his Ling power. He knew why he would suddenly recall farming Ling fields on Wukong Mountain. The mist made him think of Little Art of Cloud and Rain. He was so familiar with the Little Art of Cloud and Rain, he couldn't be any more familiar. It was the spell out of the 5 basic spells that he had the deepest comprehension of. For a long time he had relied on it to not starve. Wasn't the process of Ningmai just transforming water element power to rain? The Little Art of Cloud and Rain required first to use the spell to gather water element power. When the power reached a certain level, it would form water drops and fall as rain, nurturing the Ling fields. The two were so similar. How did Ling rain form? Zuo was too familiar. In the past, in order to study the Little Art of Cloud and Rain, he almost took apart everything in the Little Art of Cloud and Rain. Water element power was invisible and intangible. It could not directly turn to water drops. There were 2 requirements. One was having enough water element power, the other was collisions. The water element power had to collide among themselves. Only through mutual collisions to overcome the repulsion between the water element power could water drops form. The water drop would increase in size and condense in the air. One way worked, so it worked for 10,000 problems. Zuomo's thoughts became abnormally clear, and he was very confident that his direction was not wrong. Since the Ling power in his body had reached a limit, and no matter how he tried, he could not absorb any more Ling power, then what he needed to do now was to cause the Ling power to collide. To cause the collisions in Little Art of Cloud and Rain, Zuo used turbulence in the air. The changes in air flow would cause the water element power to continuously collide. Naturally, this method would not work on Ling power. Other than Ling power, the channels did not contain anything else. His direction was not wrong. What he had to find now was a realistic method. After thinking for a while, he thought of a way. Smashing Ling power. If he split his Ling power into 2 parts and then made them smash into each other at high speeds, would that accomplish the effects of a collision? His mind became alert. It would be difficult for others to use their mind for 2 things at once, but he possessed the leaf hand. It wasn't a problem. He didn't rashly start but continued to sit and ponder. He thought through every possible problem that he could think of. Some questions that he didn't know the answers to. He would only know when he tried it. Zuo decided to start experimenting. He split the Ling power inside his body to 2 parts. The spiritual leaf hand started to shake. 2 portions of Ling power started to move along their own paths. 1/2 of Ling power flowed through the channels on his left side, revolving clockwise. The other half of his Ling power flowed through the channels on his right and revolved counterclockwise. Zuo's mind was clear, untainted by mortal matters, no sorrow or joy. On his body, there was none of the frugality and worldliness that he usually had, but a faint and clean aura. His Ling power circulated while gradually speeding up. The reason that low-level Xiuzhi attacks were so weak, besides their cultivation, was that they were limited by the speed the Ling power circulated through their body. When high-level Xiuzhi thought, their Ling power would be like a tsunami, and a killing move would form. For low-level Xiuzhi, even if they managed to respond in time, and channeled the Ling power in their body, the time that was needed was much longer than high-level Xiuzhi. But as Zuo continued to speed up the circulation, the speed of the 2 groups of Ling power had reached the limits of his endurance. His channels started to hurt. The intensity was pretty much enough. Zuo gritted his teeth. The 2 high-speed flows of Ling power moved simultaneously from up and down towards his dantian. The dantian was the place chose for the collision. Compared to the narrow channels, the dantian was much broader, and the amount of Ling power it could tolerate was much higher. This held a certain degree of danger. The dantian was the nexus of all the channels in the body. If he made a mistake, then it would be a calamity. Cultivation was to go against the natural order, and it was full of dangers. This was just Ningmai. If his cultivation deepened, he would encounter more dangers such as heart demons and heavenly tribulations, and risk the destruction of his soul at any time. Knowing that there was danger, Zuo's mind was abnormally clear without any fear. 2 high-speed Ling power flows charged into the dantian, and collided without any finesse. Zuo's body shook, his head ringing. It was as though he had been struck by a large hammer. He felt his body boil. There was an instant where his soul was outside his body, his mind completely blank, not knowing what was happening. But when Zuo woke up, he felt his body was unspeakably comfortable, soft and relaxed, so comfortable that he wanted to groan. Zuo did not sink into this comfort. He carefully inspected the changes in the Ling power at his dantian. A strange scene was occurring in front of him. The 2 flows of mist that had ran head first at each other merged into a ball of Ling power, and this Ling power ball was slowly drizzling rain. The feeling of comfort was from the Ling power raining down at the dantian. As the Ling power continued to collide, the Ling power rain constantly rained down on the dantian. In a little while, the dantian turned to a little pond. Zuo was overjoyed. These water-like Ling power meant that Zuo had successfully entered Ningmai. He suppressed the happiness inside, and carefully channeled the 2 streams of Ling power. When all the Ling power had collided, that was completion. The Ling power fell like rain. Zuo patiently waited for the last thread of Ling power to collide into drops and land in the Ling power pond below. Feeling his dantian was hollow, Zuo took out a piece of Jingshi and furiously absorbed. When the Ling power was absorbed inside his body, he repeated the process and turned the Ling power into liquid. Zuo absorbed 3 pieces of 3rd-grade Jingshi before his dantian felt slightly filled. He stopped. Opening his eyes, he could not disguise the joy he felt. The Ling power in his body was 3 times what he had in Juji. This now was just after he had broken through. He finally understood why Ningmai was so much stronger than Juji. At some unknown time, his body had become wet, a sticky black layer pasted onto his body and emitting a nasty odor. Zuo hurriedly cast the little art of cloud and rain, and washed his body clean. The black substance were impurities from his body. After finishing, Zuemo felt his body was filled with Ling power, unable to stop himself from howling. Lil, pagoda that was in charge of the sky ring moon chime. Formation simultaneously started the formation with a ring from the Buddha sound hoop. All of Desolate Wood Reef could hear it. Chapter 198. What is the situation? After venting his joy, Zuemo gradually calmed down. He quickly made a new discovery. His vision had little tiny threads. What was this? Zuemo's heart moved, and he started using his scripture. As expected, these strands flowed towards him. Ling energy. So that was how Ling energy looked in the air. Zuemo suddenly realized. Quickly, another question popped up in his head. Then where did the Ling energy in the air come from? Ling veins? Then where did Ling veins come from? Zuemo laughed. Not even Jindan experts could explain these topics. He was just a Ningmai. What was the use in thinking so much? He brought his attention back to his body. Now that he broke through to Ningmai, there were many places that needed a reassessment. If someone asked Zuemo what the dominant feeling of Ningmai was, then it was the feeling of enough Ling power. The Ling power in his body was 3 times what it had been previously. The feeling of having enough Ling power was extremely pleasurable. As though his body was filled with power. The lack of Ling power had been his biggest limit before. Now that he had broken through the limit, it was an exhilarating feeling. The spells that he could not complete before he could easily cast them now. This was just the first stratum of Ningmai. He made a rough guess of the Ling power inside his body. It was about 3 Jing. When one reached Ningmai, the Ling power inside the body was measured with a new unit, Jing. The Ling power of 1 Jing was the Ling power contained in a standard 3rd-grade Jingshi. The peak of the first stratum of Ningmai was about 10 Jing. After that, he would reach a period of steady growth. The Ling power in Ningmai was far purer than in Juji. There was a change of properties in regard to power and control. Zuemo flipped his hands. Threads of fire began dancing. In an instant, a 4-turn fire formation had taken form. There was none of the previous difficulty. The feeling of ease made it enjoyable for Zuemo previously, when he then tried using Li Water Burning Heavens. This move would have taken half of his Ling power, but now it was easily accomplished. The flame like water carried a killing intent with it. Zuemo, having killed now, had a slight aura of killing that he did not have before. The plentiful Ling power flooded through the sword. The water-shaped flame was abnormally detailed. Ling power was the foundation of a Xiuzha. Without Ling power, even if one had the best talismans, they could not be used. An example were 4th-grade talismans. To use killing moves with flying swords under 4th grade, it would usually take 1 Jing of Ling power. Zuemo was able to use it 3 times now. In Juji, he could only just manage it once. Li Water Burning Heavens was a killing move. Zuemo had to almost use half of his Ling power to use it one. Now that his Ling power was more pure, the expenditure was also less. He could easily cast it 10 times. To use an intermediate 4th-grade flying sword to cast a killing move, it would use approximately 2 Jing of Ling power. Good talismans were powerful, but the Ling power they consumed were also very terrifying. Not everyone could use them. Only the best talismans were powerful and used little Ling power, like the soul-tethered talismans. But those talismans were a matter of luck. The exhilarated Zuemo furiously worked himself. Chun Yuqing carefully inspected the butterfly chrysalises in the beast pool. 3 butterfly chrysalis silently hung on the wall of the best pool. The patterns on each of the butterfly chrysalis were different. One was multicolored, another was faint blue, and the last one was gray and nondescript. Of the 6 infant worms, only 3 had become chrysalises. This success rate was not very high, but Chun Yuqing was not demotivated. Instead, he was full of anticipation. The transformation process of the 3 infant larvae had been completely different than any he had seen before. From the patterns on the chrysalises, the 3 Ling butterflies would be different types. This point made him sigh. In his previous experience, he had never encountered this kind of situation. The treatment of the 3 infant larvae had not been different. Theoretically, the mature Ling butterflies should have been the same type, and only differed in quality. The more he studied the beast pool, the more wondrous he found the beast pool. He still held a grudge about the incident with the Black Wind bandits. That feeling of helplessness, of only being able to watch, he would never forget in his life. Having been stimulated, he put 200% of his effort into these Ling butterflies. Being abandoned by the sect was not a huge blow to him. He had only been in Wukong sword sect for a short period of time, and didn't have a strong sense of belonging to the sect. He knew that many of the Shixiang were leaving, but he did not go with them. After these days, his confidence in Mo far surpassed his confidence in sections. Compared to the tragic outlook of other people, he felt this situation was pretty good. At least, Zhuo Shixiang would not be restained by the sect. His future prospects may even be better. Gongsun Chashidi also did not leave. The three most powerful people in this group were still together. Those people that left would definitely regret it, he thought. Quickly, he threw those thoughts far away, his eyes staring at the beast pool. Sounds of footsteps came over. He didn't turn around. A head appeared over his shoulder. "How is it?" Gongsun Cha asked in a low voice. The two of them chose to stay and their relationship had become close. Gongsun Cha was a butcher, but they hadn't hunted any Ling beasts recently, so he was very idle. Zhuo Mo was in seclusion every day, so he only had Chen Yucheng's company. The duty of taking the tolls landed on Gongsun Cha's body. This guy looked gentle and refined, but his face was thick, his heart dark, and extremely brave. Facing Ningmai experts, he wasn't timid at all, tearing pieces off. The docile Chen Yucheng could only gape as he watched. Soon, Chen Yucheng didn't dare to move his eyes away. Nervousness was apparent in his voice. Gongsun Cha wasn't so nervous. He looked in interest at the three chrysalises in the beast pool. Boop, a light sound. The multicolored chrysalis was the first to move. It first swayed, and then something broke through and made a little hole. Chen Yucheng's gaze became even more nervous. A dash of multiple colors flashed through the little hole, and a nimble multicolored butterfly appeared in the beast pool. Joy came onto Chen Yucheng's face. Boop boop. Another two sounds. Soon another two Ling butterflies appeared in the beast pool, one gray, one blue. The Ling butterflies danced in the beast pool nimbly, but no matter how they flew, they could not fly out of the beast pool. Chen Yucheng's expression was excited. At the side, Gongsun Cha laughed and hurriedly reminded, "Take a look." Hearing this, Chen Yucheng came back to his senses and his hands cast a spell. A dash of light flew out of his hands and accurately covered the multicolored Ling butterfly. His eyes suddenly widened as though he had seen something he could not believe. Gongsun Cha hurriedly asked, "How is it?" Chen Yucheng's lips trembled. He didn't speak, his hands casting another spell covering another Ling butterfly. His eyes that had been wide suddenly bulged, his lips trembling again. "What is it, tell me?" Gongsun Cha's curiosity had been stirred and he pressed for an answer. Chen Yucheng still didn't speak, his lips trembling without stopping like waves. His hands were not very smooth as they cast a spell, stuttering so much that he failed a few times before he succeeded. Another dash of light flew out and covered the last Ling butterfly. It was like he was struck with a body paralysis curse, suddenly freezing and looking in a daze at the Ling butterfly covered in the light. "Is there a problem?" Gongsun Cha felt his heart was speeding up. He swore inside, "Damn it, this docile and reliable really guy knows how to whet someone's appetite." At this time he suddenly heard Chen Yucheng shriek. He jumped in fright and turned over to face. Chen Yucheng, face bright red, fell backwards like a piece of wood. What was this situation? Gongsun Cha gaped as he stood in his spot, not understanding what the situation was. Zhuo Mo contentedly came out of the lava cave. Having broken through into Ningmai, the insecurity in his heart had lessened greatly. To say of nothing else, just stepping into Ningmai, with the aid of the big formation of the desolate wood reef, he wasn't afraid of Ningmai third stratum experts. If he used some more thought, and forged the 5 essence sword set, his power would increase a few more fractions. His howl had alarmed all of the desolate wood reef. The Xiuzha that had been staying on the island instantly understood that Zhuo Mo had broken through to Ningmai. The Xiuzha that had previously been restless instantly became quiet. No matter how strong the formation was, before people saw it, many did not believe it. Zhuo Mo did not lack for fame, but what was also famous was his Zhuji cultivation. In the eyes of the great majority, this point was enough to erase his advantages in other areas. This was Sky Moonjia, dominated by Swordsmanship Sky Moonjia. But now, Zhuo had managed to fill in the last shortcoming. In the hearts of others, Zhuo's danger had risen linearly. A Ningmai Xiuzhe who could fight Ningmai when he was in Juji, his danger did not have to be stated now that he was in Ningmai. All of that didn't have much to do with Zhuo. He was hungering after his 5 essence sword set, but before that he had to first absorb Golden Crow fire. After the stalagmite fire turned to inky black lava white fire, it was a 3rd grade fire seed. However, for the present Zhuo, it wasn't quite enough. After a 3rd grade fire was used with the 4-turn fire formation, it could barely process 4th grade materials. It could barely forge 4th grade materials like fox teeth and blue icicle crystal into sword billets. But if he wanted to forge a flying sword, it was not enough. For other people, finding a 4th grade fire seed was as difficult as ascending to the heavens, but for Zhuo, he completely did not have worry about this area. The amount of Golden Crow fire on his hands could be counted in double digits. Golden Crow fire was a rare fine quality specimen in 4th grade fire seeds, and was one of the most sought after fire seeds. But the problem that Zhuo faced was a difficult one. Was he to use the pure Golden Crow fire to replace inky black lava white fire? Or use the Golden Crow fire as the primary body, and merge it with inky black lava white fire? Both actions had their advantages and disadvantages. Pure Golden Crow fire was undoubtedly strong in its power, but its domineering and yang qualities made it so that it could be used to process a smaller range of items. If inky black lava white fire was added, the power would not be as good as pure Golden Crow fire, but because it had many qualities it could be used to process a larger range of items. For example, it could process cold and icy items like the blue icicle crystal, but pure Golden Crow fire could not do that. It really was a painful problem. Zhuo had a headache. Just at this time, he saw Gongsun Cha pant as he ran over in a panic. Seeing him, the other shouted, "Xixiang, not good. Chun Shidi has fainted." Chapter 199, Beast Service Card. When Zhuo hurried to the beast pool, but when he saw the glowing Chun Yucheng, he stopped in his tracks. "Didn't you say he fainted?" Zhuo turned around and saw Gongsun Cha's stunned face. Chun Yucheng became even more exuberant when he saw Zhuo and came charging over. "Xixiang, Xixiang. Success. We're successful." Zhuo didn't know what was going on. Success? What success? Ling butterflies. Chun Yucheng spread his hands. There were 3 jade cards in his hands, beast service cards. Zhuo's eyes lit up, and unconsciously raised his voice. "Really? Let me see." Beast service card. A piece of 4 CUN long and 1.5 CUN jade board. There were lucky clouds at the 4 corners. At the very center, a butterfly was motionless. Holding it in his hand, Zhuo flipped it over several times. So this is a beast service card. Gongsun Cha threw his previous inquiry to the back of his mind and crowded over. Zhuo did not scorn Gongsun Cha's excitement. It was the first time he had seen a beast service card as well. The earth-plowing earthworm and other ling beasts that he used before were too low in grade, and didn't have the qualifications to use beast service cards. Only high-grade ling beasts would need beast service cards. To store a ling beast into the card was to process and then make it submit to the owner, so the beast would follow the owner's orders. The beast service card was also the residence of the ling beast. What's the grade of the 3 ling butterflies? Zhuo still flipped and caressed the card. The patterns on the 3 beast service cards were similar, but all had their own characteristics. One of the cards had multicolored patterns. One was entirely blue, the last gray-white. Chun Yucheng was full of pride. The multicolored is the peak of 3rd grade, the rest are high 3rd grade. Facing the expectant eyes of the other 2, he took the 3 beast service cards and introduced. The ling butterfly that is multicolored has 3 spells: Rainbow Pupils, Illusion Poison, and Poison Change. I've never heard of the 3 spells before, so I do not know what the effects are. Xixiang will need to investigate it yourself. 3rd grade ling beasts that can use 3 spells naturally are the best of 3rd grade. But these 3 spells are really weird. The Dongfu Poisonous Moth is only 2nd grade. Why would this ling butterfly be primarily poisonous? As he spoke, Chun Yucheng slowly wandered off the beaten path of conversation yet again. Zhuo Mo and Gong Sun Cha helplessly exchanged a look. It wasn't the first time they had encountered this kind of situation. Chun Yucheng was a maniac about raising animals, so at any time, he could digress on a topic. Zhuo Mo lightly coughed. Chun Yucheng seemed to wake from his dream, bashfully scratching his forehead. Oh, let's continue. This blue butterfly has 2 spells, but both are water element spells. It looks like it isn't any different from Rainmark Butterfly, but it definitely isn't a Rainmark Butterfly. So strange. Seeing he was going to wander off again, Gong Sun Cha hurriedly reminded. The last one? Oh, Chun Yucheng was pulled back. This gray butterfly is also very unique. It only has 1 spell, Ling Eye. This gray butterfly is most suitable for Gong Sun Shidi. Ling Eyes can detect the density of Ling energy. If it is used to dismember beasts, it is a great aid. Gong Sun Cha did not hesitate in taking the gray butterfly's beast service card from his hands. This one is mine. Zhuo Mo naturally chose the multicolored beast service card. For things that he did not understand, he always followed the most basic rationale. Choose the most expensive one. Chun Yucheng did not have much interest in the remaining beast service card. We should sell this one. High 3rd grade, it can sell for a pretty good price. Zhuo Mo thought, and then shook his head. Shidi, take it. The situation is not good now. If you have it, Shidi can have a measure of self-protection. Exactly. Gong Sun Cha agreed. Okay, Chun Yucheng nodded. But my cultivation is low. If I want to process this beast service card, it would take a lot of time. It's worth it no matter how long you spend, Zhuo Mo said. Then the beast pool, we're not using it anymore? Chun Yucheng understood what Zhuo Mo meant. No, Zhuo Mo shook his head. Let's destroy it so it won't land on other people's hands. Chun Yucheng and Gong Sun Cha became silent, the mood instantly becoming heavy. Seeing the two seem very dejected, especially Chun Yucheng, Zhuo Mo comforted. It's fine. When we find a new place to rest, we can build a new one. Chun Yucheng finally looked more expectant. Gong Sun Cha suddenly said, I just heard a shout before. Did Xixiang break into Ningmai? That was me, Zhuo Mo nodded. The two instantly became lighter, the depression on their hearts sweeping away. Chun Yucheng smiled and said, That's great. Xixiang is in Ningmai, now I can sleep peacefully at night. He was full of confidence in Zhuo Mo. Gong Sun Cha did not speak, but there was a light in his eyes, the smile on his face unspeakably devious. Our income isn't bad recently. At least 50 or 60 people every day, at max 100 people. Each person is charged 100 pieces of 3rd grade Jingshi. Overall, the daily income is 10 to 20 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi. 10 to 20 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi. Zhuo Mo sucked in a breath. All of his discomfort and dejection were instantly swept away. This terrifying number made his little heart beat rapidly. A short time ago, 1 piece of 4th grade Jingshi was an enormous sum for him. As expected, it was easy to get rich in troubled times. Even bandit leaders like Zhang Hao only carried about 10 or so pieces of 4th grade Jingshi on his body. That was Zhuo Mo's daily income now. An enormous feeling of good fortune surrounded Zhuo Mo. He felt he had never been so rich before. Jingshi increase a person's courage. Zhuo Mo's confidence shot up. So what if there was Yaoma? These days, there were no monsters that could not be smashed to death with Jingshi. Hee, according to my estimates, this is just the beginning. After a while, the migration will reach a peak. A conservative estimate would be 500 xiuzhi passing through each day. Gong Sun Cha's refined and delicate face smiled softly and darkly, making Chun Yucheng's body feel cold. 500. Zhuo Mo felt so many Jingshi were flying in front of his eyes. His heart was flying. 1 person was 100 pieces of 3rd grade Jingshi. 500 people. That was 100 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi. No matter what the price of commodities had grown to now, 100 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi was definitely a number with great purchasing power. However, this Jingshi isn't that easy to make, Gong Sun Cha slowly said. Zhuo Mo's heated head instantly cleared. What? People dare to plot against us? When he said this, his voice was full of killing intent. Groups with many members may not be willing to pay, Gong Sun Cha said shortly. Zuemo recovered from the blow of Jingshi. That was right. If a group had many people, they would definitely not be willing to pay the toll. 100 pieces of third-grade Jingshi was fine for Ningmai, but it was not an insignificant sum for Zhuji Xiuzhe. A single person would be afraid of the formation on the island and the golden armor guards, but if there were many people, the situation would not be easy to control. For Jingshi, Zuemo had more enthusiasm than anyone, his brains calculating faster than anyone else. That's easy. We can hire some Ningmai sword xiao. 100 pieces of third-grade Jingshi a day. This price we can hire many Ningmai sword xiao. Zuemo smirked. I'm in Ningmai now. I can expand the formation. Who won't give the Jingshi? Ji will destroy their souls. Zuemo said hatefully. Gong Sun Cha's eyes were bright while Chun Yucheng's face was full of shock. Hong Yang saw the little island coming up and released a breath inside. It wasn't just him. The 10 guards behind him also released a breath. Long flights were exhausting. There was a little island up ahead. They could finally rest for a while. That should be the desolate wood reef. We can use the area to rest and recover. After 2 days we will pass the Jie River, he ordered. The 10 guards protected him as they flew towards the desolate wood reef. Hong Yang was the storekeeper of a large merchant business who had been sent to Sky Moon Jie. He had recently received an order from the merchant house for him to take all of the store's Jingshi and important talismans to leave Sky Moon Jie and enter Little Mountain Jie. When he received this order, he had almost assumed that someone was pretending to send a false order. Only when he personally went to confirm it did he know what was happening. So he took the 10 strongest guards of the shop and made a low-key escape to Little Mountain Jie. As the procession flew near Desolate Wood Reef, they unconsciously slowed their speed. In the sky above the Desolate Wood Reef, a golden sun hung high, countless golden threads falling down. Many rings of light were strung on the golden strings, occasionally chiming. Before nearing, Hong Yang felt the domineering and pressuring presence from the formation. Such a powerful formation. He was shocked. He wasn't a country bumpkin. To be able to manage the merchant business of one Jie, his eyes were undoubtedly skilled. Ah! One of the guards gasped in shock. What is it? He couldn't help ask. This formation seems a bit like the formation that the sword test conferences Zuemo used. The guard pondered for a long time before saying, but above Zuemo's formation was a moon. This formation has a sun. Zuemo. Hong Yang chewed on this name. One of the most accomplished disciples of Wukong sword sect, he naturally knew about him. But his information channels were wide. He also knew that Wukong sword sect had already moved to Bright Wave Jie. A core disciple like Zuemo definitely wouldn't remain in Sky Moon Jie. However, it was better to be careful. He was carrying large amounts of Jingshi and talismans on his body, and naturally had to be careful. Even more, the presence of the formation could not lie. No matter who was it that set up the formation. A person able to set up such a large formation wasn't a simple person. This one's group would like to borrow space to rest for a few days, he shouted. Welcome. Thank you for your patronage. Each person 100 pieces of third-grade Jingshi. A soft voice passed out of the formation. One person 100 piece of third-grade Jingshi. This was extortion. This definitely was extortion. The 10 guards instantly became angry. 100 pieces of third-grade Jingshi was enough to buy a pretty good third-grade talisman. The leader of the guards even had his flying sword in his hand. Hong Yang still kept his calm. This price was very high, but it wasn't as though he could not accept it. The other was not afraid to call a high price. They definitely had something they relied on. All right. Hong Yang did not hesitate in nodding. The other did not seem to be afraid that he would go back on his word. The big formation moved and revealed a passage. I'll go first. The leader of the guards did not forget his duty and walked at the very front. He had the highest cultivation of all the guards. Of the 10 guards, 3 were Ningmai, the other 7 were the peak of Zhuji. All of them acted as though they were facing a great enemy. Their expressions nervous as they carefully proceeded into the passage. Chapter 200. Peddling. As he entered the passage, the shock in Hong Yang's heart increased. This Jie River was the only passageway leading to Little Mountain Jie. He had crossed it so many times before that he had lost count. He remembered clearly this was the territory of Heart Lake Sword Sect, and was guarded by a few disciples. He had had several interactions with these Heart Lake Sword Sect disciples. Every time he passed through he would give a few gifts to maintain a close relationship. He remembered those Heart Lake disciples had no interest in developing the Desolate Wood Reef, so the Desolate Wood Reef was always very bare. When did the Desolate Wood Reef become like this? As he landed from the passage of the formation, what he saw along the way was high defenses, heavy Jinji so much that if they put 1 foot out of the border, they would instantly be killed by the formation. The appearing and disappearing sounds landed in everyone's eyes like an intangible killing intent. The group walked as though there was a sword at their backs, their bodies cold, hair standing on end. Even the face of the guard leader went from bright to dimmed. He clearly was very wary. Such a big formation could not have been built in one day. The shock in Hong Yang's heart increased. Did Heart Lake Sword Sect do this? In reality, from the perspective of a businessperson, Hong Yang felt that constructing a restricted area here was a very profitable business. He decided to wait and see. 100 pieces of third-grade Jingshi per person was just a small number to him, but from the perspective of others, it was just a reckless toll. It did not seem like something a big sect like Heart Lake Sword Sect would do. What he was most afraid of was there would be no limit to the others' demands. Luckily, he had brought almost all the elite of the merchant house with him. Of the 10 guards, 3 were Ningmai experts, the others were all peak of Zhuji. As expected, when the world was in disorder anything could occur. Hong Yang sighed. Welcoming him was a delicate and handsome youth and 3 golden armor guards. The youth had a friendly smile on his face. His cultivation was not high, just Zhuji. Hong Yang's gaze landed on the 3 guards behind him, and he was stunned. Not just him. Even the leader of the guards and the 2 other Ningmai guards changed expression. The 3 guards were completely covered in golden armor, only revealing their eyes. The 3's gazes were cold and indifferent, without a hint of emotion. Their killing intent was tangible. Each person was holding an exaggeratedly large broadsword that seemed designed to make people feel even more intimidated. Where did these 3 come from? The heart of the guard leader sunk to the bottom. Hong Yang motioned for the guards to guard the outside, and walked in with the leader of the guards. He smiled and said, Sanren's relaxed attitude, this little brother has never been able to learn it. Haha. Brother Hong always talks so well. Come, sit. Longjun Sanren said. Hong Yang was not courteous and sat down opposite Longjun Sanren. Longjun Sanren was one of his old acquaintances, and they had known each other before he had become the storekeeper, and had kept in contact after that. Longjun Sanren was dedicated to cultivation. A decade ago he had already broken through to Ningmai second stratum. His present cultivation was unknown. Does Sanren know the history of the island owner? Hong Yang asked in a low voice. Haha, old brother must have just entered the island. Longjun Sanren seemed to have expected that Hong Yang would ask, and said with a smile. Old brother definitely would not be unfamiliar with the owner of the island. This island was originally the property of Heart Lake Sword Sect, and then it switched to Wukong Sword Sect. Their disciple, Swordsmanship, was sent to guard this place. Didn't Wukong Sword Sect move to Bright Wave Jia? Hong Yang could help but ask. Haha, Swordsmanship does not belong to a sect now, so he is the owner of the island, Longjun Sanren. Hong Yang stilled and then gasped. Impossible. How can Wukong Sword Sect abandon their core disciple? Even more, it is Swordsmanship. The leader of the guards behind him also had a face full of disbelief. Such a talented disciple as Swordsmanship, no sect would easily abandon him. I don't understand what had happened, but right now the master of the island is undoubtedly Swordsmanship. Longjun Sanren suddenly remembered something. Speaking of it, old brother really came at a good time. Oh, how so? Hong Yang still hadn't recovered from the last shock, and asked instinctively. This Swordsmanship is really a genius. He astounded everyone by making the Golden Crow pill before. Now somehow he made Golden Crow fire. Longjun Sanren sighed. Golden Crow fire. Hong Yang jumped in fright. 4th grade Golden Crow fire? Yes, that Golden Crow fire. Longjun Sanren smiled. So I say that old brother really came at a good time. The news has not spread yet. Otherwise, countless people would have headed here already. 4th grade Golden Crow Fire. Hong Yang muttered. Long Zhen Sanren took a drink of tea. I heard the news when I encountered Bo Feng on the road. Pity that I have no power to purchase it. Old brother, you might not know, but the Black Wind bandits attacked this place, but they were all killed. He shook his head, sighing. I was dumbstruck when I heard this news. All killed. And it was the Black Wind bandits. If Wukong Sword Sect learned this, they would be so regretful. Zhuji, unable to kill the Black Wind bandits. We have really wasted our lives. Just a few days earlier he broke through to Ningmai. Such a genius. I have never heard of one like him. Hong Yang seemed to be struck by lightning, his entire head ringing. Long Zhen Sanren had given him too much news, so much he needed time to digest it. They chatted for a little more before he bid farewell. He needed to digest all this. The next day, he found Gong Sun Cha. I heard that the island is selling Golden Crow Fire. This one wishes to buy. Gong Sun Cha brought Hong Yang to Zhuo Mo. When Hong Yang saw Zhuo Mo, the stone in his heart landed. Zhuo Mo could be considered one of the most talented and famous youths in Sky Moon Jia, and he was skilled in making dan. His business reputation had been very good before. When he heard about the Golden Crow Fire, he couldn't sit still. 4th grade Golden Crow Fire was not something that he could buy when he wanted to. If he had a chance to buy it, his heart moved. If he could buy Golden Crow Fire, it could be counted as a large achievement. When he returned to the merchant house, his status would rise. Also, the clever Hong Yang had other plans. Other than Golden Crow Fire, Zhuo Mo's personal wealth was extremely large. This kind of person was the high-end customer that business people liked the most. You want to buy Golden Crow Fire? Zhuo Mo looked at Hong Yang, his mood well. Finally, someone was coming to buy Golden Crow Fire. Yes, Hong Yang said. Can this one take a look at the true face of Golden Crow Fire? The other's carefulness did not make Zhuo Mo feel displeasure. This meant that the other truly had interest in buying. He took out a mini box, opened it and pushed it in front of Hong Yang. A pure gold flame jumped in the box. The young and domineering presence filled the room. Hong Yang was slightly excited. Golden Crow Fire. As expected, it really was Golden Crow Fire. And it was very pure. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Hong Yang asked, how does Mr. Zhuo plan on selling this? On the market now, Golden Crow Fire of this quality, the price is usually about 2 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi. Hong Yang's price was very just. However, Zhuo Mo, who heard the other meaning in Hong Yang's words, followed along and said, does storekeeper Hong have a suggestion? Hong Yang knew the following was the most crucial time, and would test his skill as a salesperson. He seemed to have returned to those days as an apprentice. He was slightly excited. He said, this one does not have much Jingshi now, but have some interesting things that Mr. Zhuo might find interesting. Interesting things? Zhuo Mo reacted very quickly. He hadn't thought that he would become the target of a sales pitch. However, he decided to see what the other could take out first. Chapter 201. Armed to the teeth, Zhuo Mo was dazzled by the talismans in front of him. Noticing the change in Zhuo Mo's eyes, Hong Yang was very proud. He took out a pair of silver wings the size of his palm. Look, this pair of thunder-flowing light wings are intermediate 4th grade. It is the upgraded version of Thunder Wings. As fast as lighting and famed for its speed, this pair of thunder-flowing light wings was forged by Jindan experts. Other than its peerless speed, its consumption of Ling power was made to be very low. At full speed, it would use 1 Jing of Ling power every 2 hours, and if it was at 80% of its speed, it would only use half a Jing every 2 hours. Such a fine item, it only is 60 piece of 4th grade Jingshi. Zhuo Mo did not hesitate in nodding. I'll take it. Do you want to taste the extreme speed? Zhuo Mo was too familiar with the advertisement for Thunder Wings. Even more, this was thunder-flowing light wings, an even better version. It was much faster. Lightning sparked around the palm-sized wings extremely beautifully. Hong Yang was joyous. Before he could speak, he heard Zhuo Mo add, For pairs. 240 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi. Hong Yang felt like a blooming flower. A feeling of happiness spreading through his body. This trip was worth it. Big customer. Definitely a big customer. Look, the presents, the spending, this was the biggest whale among whales. Hong Yang was excited, completely excited. He perceptively discovered just how full Zhuomo's wallet was. It was as though he was shot up with chicken's blood. He felt the blood in his body burning as though it was exploding. He suppressed the impulse to shout. He sounded the horn of battle. 10,000 appearances gloves, referring to everything in the universe. Low 4th grade, not extremely fine, but very practical. Wearing these gauntlets, it means having the power of 10,000. One sword strike will be able to break open a mountain, unable to be stopped. If it was just this, I would be ashamed to take it out. Its biggest benefit is it uses almost no Ling power. Even Zhuji can wear it. 20 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi, a beautiful price. Buy. Putting it on to try, Zhuomo did not hesitate in nodding. 4 pairs. He thought of the 3 golden armor guards wearing the gloves. Adding on their exaggerated red broadswords, they could just charge through his enemies. Zhuomo couldn't help but be excited. 7-star sword boots, intermediate 4th grade. The 7-star step method is wondrous, unable to be predicted. As long as you are wearing it, you can easily avoid all kinds of attacks, your steps traceless, the best item for short-range movement. Other than that, it has a 7-star sword formation. If you step in a 7 stars pattern, the formation would take form automatically, making your attacks undefendable. Each pair is only 74 4th grade Jingshi. Buy. Zhuomo's eyes were bright, as he unhesitatingly nodded. 4 pairs. Hong Yang completely got into the rhythm, despite having never been as excited as he was now. Same heart necklace. This is a rare upper 4th grade talisman. It can be called great craftsmanship. It is able to let your mind connect to 6 others. The best aid to melee fighting. 150 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi. Zhuomo's eyes could not move away. He instantly nodded. Buy. This was truly a good thing. He instantly got the 3 golden armor guards to come over. He put on the same heart necklace, and cast the corresponding spell. He instantly felt 3 clear and tangible connections. His mind moved, and one of the golden armor guards suddenly went forward 3 steps. Zhuomo was overjoyed. With this necklace, his offensive strength was elevated. This is Snake Pupil Belt. The battle was not finished. When Hong Yang went back to his residence, he was still somewhat dazed. What he had experienced today had been like a dream. Zhuomo had almost cleared out all the talismans in his ring. He had never encountered a customer as rich as this one. It was too scary. Thinking about the little pile of mini boxes in his ring, the feeling of surrealism became even stronger. This time he really made a profit. Zhuomo saw the golden armor guards armed to the teeth, and grinned. All 4th grade talismans that dazzled a person's eyes. The present golden armor guards could be described by one phrase only. Deadly weapons. Gong Sun Cha and Chun Yuqing were dumbstruck. Was this Xiuzha? It was 3 display racks for talismans. Any place that a talisman could be hung on the body of the golden armor guard. Zhuomo did not leave it empty. Hands holding the crimson fire broadsword, bodies covered in golden armor, feet encased in 7-star sword boots, hands wearing 10,000 appearances gloves, waist tied with the snake pupil belt, and thunder-flowing light wings on the back. Red, green, gold, silver, with Zhuomo's terrible sense of beauty. There naturally was no beauty here. Everyone's first thought when they would see this was only be nouveau riche. So rich. It was like those rich country bumpkins plating their teeth in gold, wanting everyone to know. Even Gong Sun Cha and Chun Yuqing felt disdain. But other than that, it evoked deep fright. The thick killing intent spilling from the 3 golden armor guards made one have to directly look and judge the terrifying power contained under this ugly grandeur. Gong Sun Cha and Chun Yuqing also received many talismans, mostly for life-saving and escaping. The 2 of them did not have any fighting power at all. If they had offensive talismans, they wouldn't even be able to use a fraction of its power. However, the husbandry and butchery jade scrolls and life-saving talismans made the 2 smile. Especially Gong Sun Cha. After he received the white medal, it was hard to progress as jade scrolls were hard to find. Other than talismans, Zhuomo had bought large amounts of materials from Hong Yang. especially some fourth-grade materials. However, this furious shopping spree had emptied him of golden crowfire. But Swaemo did not care. He could gather golden crowfire at any time. It wasn't difficult for him. With this batch of talismans, to say of nothing else, their offensive power had multiplied. He had the confidence to face anyone under Jindan. However, what he felt demotivated by was the golden armor guard seemed born to fight. Compared to himself, they did not seem to need to practice to easily use the talismans to reach their full potentials. Swaemo gaped. Deeply struck, Swaemo could only slowly adjust. Like the 7-star sword boots, if he needed to activate the sword formation, he needed to do 7 steps after the other in the correct locations. When the fully armored golden armor guards appeared on the desolate wood reef the next day, they caused a small disturbance. Any Xiozha that saw them couldn't help but have a stunned expression. Hongyang didn't dare to stay long, leaving the next day. Pu Yao coldly looked at the gradually shrinking Blackwater Lake. The Blackwater Lake was only a quarter of the size it had been originally. Those human-like monsters were continuously transporting black water from the lake to the altar. The old-fashioned and crude altar was now completely black without any glow. Almost there, Pu Yao muttered. He blew out black air. Those human-like monsters once again landed in the lake water. After that, he waved his sleeve. Large amounts of materials were added to the lake water. Many of them ones that Swaemo had bought from Hongyang. The black lake water started to bubble, like a boiling pot of porridge. Pu Yao's right palm opened slightly. A red-black flame appeared at the center of his palm. Hiss. His hand did not move, but the red-black flame suddenly turned into a fire dragon and charged at the altar. The red-black fire flamed as it surrounded the altar, the flames flickering and enchanting. Pu Yao inhaled deeply, his hands reaching out. His hands changed movements. His slightly closed bloody eye suddenly widened, commanding lightly, "Rise." The altar that was shrouded in fire rose at command and started to fly towards the black lake, only slowly landing as it reached the center of the lake. As it carried the flames that were so red they were almost black, it floated at the center of the lake. Pu Yao's expression was solemn, his eyes focused, not daring to slip, as his hands changed shape again. It was like the fire was poured on oil, spreading across the surface of the black water. In a blink, the entire Blackwater Lake was shrouded in flame. Pu Yao finally released a breath. He reached out his hand, the Blackwater Lake dramatically shrinking until it became palm-sized. Then the mini-lake flew into his hand, the surrounding flames silently burning. After being forged for many more months, the nether pool could form. A deep exhaustion came from his body. Pu Yao felt unspeakably tired and sighed lightly inside. The present him was so weak. Swaemo's excitement had not faded. He had never bought so many talismans before, and so many fourth-grade talismans. The feeling of being so rich was so good. Not bad you are at Ningmai. Pu Yao suddenly appeared. He seemed slightly exhausted. Then let's continue with the earth energy. Swaemo felt as though a bucket of cold water was poured on his head. Drawing out earth energy, he finally understood what was extreme grief born of extreme joy. It was all right though. This had benefits for him, so Swaemo comforted himself in this way. Pu Yao's actions were unusually fast. In a blink, the earth energy inside Swaemo's body was cleanly swept away. Swaemo dropped to the ground paralyzed, his body occasionally convulsing. Pu Yao glanced at Swaemo on the ground. His face showed pleasure before he disappeared. Swaemo's mind was blank. It was 4 hours later when his numb mind finally recovered. Why was the feeling this time was stronger than before? Was it a side effect of breaking through to Ningmai? Before, he had assumed that he had gradually adjusted to the pain of earth energy being forcibly drawn out. He hadn't thought the pain would suddenly increase. Without any preparation, Swaemo instantly became a tragedy. A female stared at the large river in front of her. Behind her was a silent and solemn, well-organized troop. "Have you found out?" "Yes," a middle-aged man said respectfully. "The location of stars in daytime is Sky Moon Jia. It was not long ago, about a year ago." "1 year ago." The female sighed lightly. "I'm very curious which Darren it is." The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with a fanatical heat. A Darren that could escape from the Yao forging tower. It definitely is a Darren that managed to survive the 1,000-year Great War. 1,000-year Great War, a long time ago. Miss. Nothing, I'm just reflecting. The female smiled. Our generation is very lucky. Yes. The middle-aged man couldn't help but be excited. Have there been any suspicious targets? The female asked. Not yet. The middle-aged male gave a realistic plan. We have already found the Jia rivers to Sky Moon Jia. We only need to lock the Jia rivers, and we will have plentiful time to slowly investigate. Alright, it is a stupid method. Yes. Our previous infiltrators were impeded by others, so nothing, stupid methods are more effective sometimes. The female waved her hand. Yes. Glancing at the Jia River, the female said, Depart. Yes. Chapter 202 Territory Intrusion. Zhuo played with the beast service card in his hand, as a multicolored butterfly flew around him. Chun Yucheng named this multicolored butterfly Rainbow Mark Butterfly. It was the most outstanding Ling beast he had ever raised up until now. Zhuo could feel an extremely weak presence come from the Rainbow Mark Butterfly. The thoughts were very weak, and there were many images that were indistinct. This was a characteristic unique to low-level Ling beasts. The higher the grade of the Ling beast, the more intelligent it would be. High-level Ling beasts were not much different than Xiuzha. This Rainbow Mark Butterfly was only 3rd grade, and its intelligence just forming. Naturally, there would be many messages that Zhuo could not understand. However, it could accurately understand Zhuo's orders, and was very obedient. The beast pool had been constructed to make Jingshi. He had never thought that he wouldn't lack for Jingshi now. So the batch of Ling butterflies had been turned from a business product into for their own use. The Rainbow Mark Butterfly was the most outstanding of the 3 Ling butterflies. It had 3 spells: Rainbow Pupils, Illusion Poison, Poison Change. He ordered the Rainbow Mark Butterfly to cast the Rainbow Pupils. The Rainbow Mark Butterfly lightly fluttered its wings. A rainbow light landed on Zhuo's body. His eyes were suddenly covered in a layer of faint 5-colored light. Zhuo felt the world in front of him change. Everything he saw was gray-white. The silently masticating Rainbow Mark Butterfly communicated before Zhuo understood. The so-called Rainbow Pupil was to detect poison. It could detect the danger of poisonous items. Zhuo did not cultivate poison, so the spell was not very useful for him. The only place he could use it was in dan-making. Compared to Rainbow Pupil, Illusion Poison was much more interesting. Illusion Poison was to use poison to create illusion. Zhuo was very interested. He instantly thought of the uses for this spell. If he secretly fortified a few places of his formation with illusion poison, then no one would detect it. However, the spell most important to Zhuo was the 3rd spell, Poison Change. Rather than calling it a spell, Poison Change was more like a talent. According to Chun Yucheng's explanation, if he kept on feeding the Rainbow Mark Butterfly poison, especially high-grade poison, when it reached a certain level, it could cause the Rainbow Mark Butterfly to transform and enter a higher grade. As the grade increased, the intelligence of a Ling beast would increase, and there was a possibility of the addition of a spell. It was a pity that Zhuo did not have any interest in poison, much less high-grade poison. Suddenly, Zhuo smacked his forehead. How did he forget that? Didn't his inky black lava white fire have a deadly poison? That was the poison obtained by processing a 4th grade inky black lotus seed. The grade of the inky black lotus fire was too low. Zhuo had decided to use the golden crow fire as the primary one. It was perfect for him to split the fire apart. The poison for the Rainbow Mark Butterfly, the fire for Lil Pagoda. Even though the grade of the inky black lava white fire was not high, but it was still a fire seed, and quite pure. But before that, Zhuo still needed to do one thing: forge the blue ice sword. The blue icicle crystal could only be forged with a cold fire. The grade of the golden crow fire was higher, but the attribute was not correct. The blue icicle crystal sword billet was about half a chi long, its body shaped like a prism. When the light reflected on the facets of the prism, it was very beautiful. 3 days later, the blue ice sword took form. The entire body was like a blue icicle, the tip of the sword extremely sharp. The body of the sword was made out of countless facets. As it floated in the air, a mist naturally formed around the sword. Zuomo's mind moved. Pew, the blue ice sword entered the ground, only leaving behind a sword-shaped hole. There was a circle of clear ice cracks around the hole. It could be seen just how cold it was. Zuomo's forging skill was not high and the blue ice crystal was just lower 4th grade. The grade of the inky black lava white fire was also too low. He had barely managed to forge a 4th grade flying sword. He didn't care that much. The 5 essence sword set emphasized the cooperation between the different qualities of the flying swords. Taking apart the inky black lava white fire, however, had taken Zuomo quite a bit of effort. The poison from the inky black lotus had long ago merged into the flame. Zuomo did not have the strength at his cultivation level to take it apart. However, he thought of a clever solution: let Lil Pagoda deconstruct it. The present Lil Pagoda only needed a bit to break through to 4th grade. Its control greatly increased. It could control how to decompose what was put into it. The inky black lava white fire was quickly taken apart. The inky black lotus poison was separated out. What surprised Zuomo was that this ball of inky black lotus poison was an invisible substance. When he used Ling power to carefully surround this deadly poison, he was instantly alarmed. His Ling power was quickly consumed, as expected from a 4th grade inky black lotus poison. This discovery made him hesitate. Could the rainbow mark butterfly tolerate such a strong poison? But quickly, he could feel the rainbow mark butterfly's anticipation and joy. The rainbow mark butterfly lightly flapped its multicolored wings, and a circle of light surrounded the poison. The ring of light continuously shrunk until it disappeared. Zuomo was slightly disappointed. A line of black had appeared on the wings of the rainbow mark butterfly, but there was no other change. Lil Pagoda absorbed the fire seed, but there were no signs of another breakthrough. Alright, he could not be too greedy, Zuomo mumbled. He started to absorb the golden crow fire. The atmosphere of the desolate wood reef was nervous and fretful. Everyone's face was slightly heavy. A few days ago, several Xiozha had escaped from the Jie River. They had encountered a group of very strong Xiozha. That group killed everyone they saw. Many Xiozha didn't even have the time to flee before they were killed. Instantly, the desolate wood reef became tense. These injured Xiozha had no strength to fly over the endless ocean, and could only stay on the desolate wood reef. Those Xiozha that had originally planned to travel to Little Mountain Jie through the Jie River didn't dare to move recklessly, and waited to see what would happen. The number of Xiozha on the desolate wood reef increased, but no one dared to cause a disturbance. Other than the intimidation of the 3 golden armor guards, they also understood, if there really was a powerful enemy, the formation on the island was their strongest defense. Without the beast pool, Chun Yucheng was idle. His face was full of worry. There's more than 600 Xiozha on the island, and more than 20 Ningmai. If something happens, that wouldn't be good. Shi Xiang is also in seclusion. What are you afraid of? Gong Sun Cha was unconcerned and said heartlessly, worst case, we can just flee. What do you think the people in the Jie River are? Killing everyone they see. They really have no regard for the law. Chun Yucheng was righteously indignant. Gong Sun Cha teased the gray butterfly and said lazily, who knows, probably a group of people who couldn't think things through. Suddenly, the crowd on the island shifted. The two instantly stopped what they were doing and stood up. Far away in the sky, there were many black dots. Chun Yucheng inhaled sharply, his face pale, voice trembling as he pointed at the black dots in the sky. What is that? Gong Sun Cha also was motionless at his spot with a shocked expression. The dense crowd of black dots flew at the desolate wood reef at astonishing speed like a black cloud rolling over the sky. With a suffocating presence, they silently moved to a distance 20 li from the desolate wood reef. Yao Ma. Someone trembled out those 2 words. It was as though a spark had been thrown into a pot of oil. The deathly silent desolate wood reef suddenly exploded. Yao Ma. Chun Yucheng felt his legs sore and weak, dropping to the ground. There were hints of terror in Gong Sun Cha's eyes, but the terror was quickly changed to curiosity. Was this Yao Ma? It wasn't just him that had this thought. In reality, this thought uncontrollably flashed across many people's minds on the desolate wood reef. Other than the somewhat strange dark green skin, the Yamo in the sky didn't seem much different than Xiuzha. On their foreheads, they all had a piece of crystal. The color and shape varied. Their bodies were mostly slender, and were very handsome regardless of sex. This is Yamo? Wow. Gongsun Chat scared. He rubbed his chin. Oh, almost as handsome as me, that's not very good. However, he quickly became speechless. The Yamo in the sky quickly moved forward 3 li. Everyone was intimidated. People now found that the dark green-skinned Yama in the sky were in well-organized ranks that seemed to have been measured with a ruler. During the flying process, the entire troop did not have any hint of disorder. They were so synchronized that it was frightening. When several dozen people were so, everyone would find it to be nothing, but when thousands of people were so organized, an invisible pressure formed. It was as if there was 1,000 caddy rock on everyone's chest. All the noise stopped, like someone had cut their throats. Really the elite. Gongsun Cha's eyes glowed as he muttered. He then looked in sympathy at the panicking Xiuzha on the island, and couldn't help but sigh. And there go the rabble. The contrast between the two sides was too strong. Of the thousands of people on the other side, no one was speaking. It was deathly silent. The Xiuzha on the island was panicking like a crowd of headless chickens. Prepare to run for your life, Gongsun Cha said to Chen Yucheng. What about Xixiang? Chen Yucheng asked, his expression blank. Find him. Gongsun Cha said. I'm here. At some unknown time, Zuo appeared behind the two of them. Escape. Gongsun Cha spread his hands at Zuo grimaced. He hadn't thought that he would encounter this just after he came out of seclusion. He knew that Gongsun Cha was right. Even though the island had 600 Xiuzha, it was just a grab bag of random cultivators. Looking at the military troop that was so terrifyingly organized, a hint of helplessness rose in Zuomo's heart. The difference in power was not something a formation could bridge. Is it really Yao Ma? Chen Yucheng was still somewhat lost. Gongsun Cha looked in curiosity at Zuomo. And Yao, not Emo, Zuomo nodded. Mostly Ghost Attendant Yao and some Night Stalk Yao. Ghost Attendant Yao? Night Stalk Yao? Gongsun Cha had an interested expression. To them, Yao Ma was a very distant monster. The most basic Yao are called Little Yao, about our Lianqi. The next level is Ghost Attendant Yao, like our Zhuji. The Night Stalk Yao are equivalent to our Ningmai, Zuo explained simply. That scared me. Then can't we hold this place? Chen Yucheng said excitedly. Gongsun Cha shook his head but didn't speak. Zuo grimaced. Probably not. Yao Ma emphasize killing, and have endured fighting since they were born. They live more harshly than we do. Also, you can also see their organization. Our side only has scattered soldiers and heroes. We are not a match. Then what do we do? Chen Yucheng's little face became pale again. Flee. Zuo gritted his teeth and said hatefully. His heart was filled with sorrow. The good days of sitting and taking in money had reached an end. Chapter 203 Date Seed Ship. Miss, the position of this island is extremely good. It is perfect for guarding the Jie River. The middle-aged man said respectfully. Is that the formation of a Xiuzha? The female did not reply. She was staring at the hoop of light that was like a sun above the island. Yes, Mississippi. He opened his mouth, but perceptively swallowed his words. Oh. The female said faintly. Check first if there is any suspicious targets among them. If not, push them out. Yes. The middle-aged man instantly complied. You really are kind. A male beside the female said in a sarcastic tone. He was like a crane among the chickens, his entire person like a burning flame, a flame-red crystal on his forehead. Sweeping a glance at the rebellious male, the female was calm. Yanfeng, shut your mouth. Yanfeng smirked. The Xiuzha on this island are just rabble. Give me 500 troops, and I can sweep them clean. If you let them go, isn't it letting them off easy? The female was not moved. Our job is to find someone. Yanfeng suddenly became excited. Mushi, you forget that they are Xiuzha. Our enemy. The more we kill, the less enemies we have. Mushi's tone became cold. Sir Yanfeng, please watch your tone. You are speaking to your direct commander. If you overstep again, You will be treated according to military law. Yanfeng was so angry fire came out of his eyes. The last bit of intelligence allowed him to keep his control. He knew the woman in front of him would do as she said. The composition of Yao was extremely complex. There were many species. Different than the reproduction of humans, Yao were born from nature, formed from the Ling energy of the world. Like Muxi, she came from the largest clan of Yao, the Wood clan. They were all formed from flora. Yanfeng came out of desolate western mountain sky fire branch. The reproduction of the fire clan was not as prosperous of the Wood clan. They did not have many Yao, but they were natural fighters, their personality explosive and brave. The Wood, Fire, Gold, Water, and Earth clans were the 5 largest clans of the Yao, but there were other little clans as many as sand. Due to the abundance of Yao, every decade, some small clans would be born. Due to this, Yao society was very accepting and very transparent. This type of transparent and complete government was like an enormous squid that reached its tentacles into every corner. It was also this governance that had born from countless great minds and strong elders that allowed the Yao to quickly recover. For example, Muxi was the most accomplished of the youths of the Wood clan. Even though her cultivation was not outstanding, but she had started her duties very early. Yanfeng rarely found an opponent that could match his offensive power, and was even stronger than Muxi, but due to his infighting within the ranks he was punished and placed under Muxi's command. In reality, the two once had been classmates, but they had always been at odds. Zuemo found he actually wasn't nervous. He was slightly surprised. It seemed that fighting and killing really hardened people. However, Pu Yao's words instantly made him nervous. They have come to find you. Find me? Zuemo gaped. Stars in daytime, you alerted them. Pu Yao was very calm. This made the nervousness in Zuemo's heart decrease. Stars in daytime, what does it do? Zuemo asked a question that had been hidden in his heart for a long time. Not much. Some strong Yaoma would try to borrow the power of the stars to recover from serious wounds. And this forms the stars in daytime. Pu Yao said. It was you. Pu Yao smiled coldly. None of my business. He then frowned. But these things are slightly irritating. Aren't you a Yao? Should you be of the same kind as them? Zuemo couldn't really grasp Pu Yao's attitude. However, if it wasn't Pu Yao, who was it? Was it the gravestone? Pu Yao did not like Xiuzhe. Zuemo could understand this, but he could not understand that Pu Yao didn't even like the Yao. They don't have any connection to me. Pu Yao's face was cold. Zuemo saw that Pu Yao didn't seem to want to mention this matter, and perceptively changed the topic. Do you have any good suggestions? Your luck seems pretty good. The arrivals are the Wood clan. Pu Yao glanced at the organized ranks of Yao troops in the sky. They don't like fighting. Wood clan. Zuemo was very curious. Zuemo might have openly spoke about the little Yao before, but that was buying and selling at the same time. Zuemo was very unfamiliar with Yaoma. Seeing that he could not avoid a conflict with the Yaoma, it was beneficial for him to know a bit more. A large clan, but it has many cadet branches. Formed from flora. Pu Yao introduced shortly. Oh, Zuemo nodded, not understanding. What was formed from flora? But he knew that Pu Yao definitely did not have the patience to explain. Suddenly, Zuemo detected a strong consciousness ripple. He couldn't help but jump. Such a strong consciousness. The consciousness ripple came from the other side and swept the sky above the entire desolate wood reef. Before this, Zuemo had been very confident in his consciousness. He had almost never encountered a Xiuzhe who had a stronger consciousness than he did. But the strength of this consciousness was far above his. They are searching for you. Such a pity. Just Night Stalk Yao, they believe they have the skill. Pu Yao smirked. He seemed to understand what Zuemo was thinking. It's very normal. They only cultivate the consciousness. It isn't something a half-ass like you can compare to. Pu Yao's interest was unknowingly stirred. Yao cultivate the consciousness, so the division for spiritual power is much finer than the Xiuzhe. Star Fire, Manifestation, Spirit Seed, Yin Spirit, Yao Mansion, 6 Revolutions and Sky Channels. You are just at Manifestation. Among them, the most powerful have finished Spirit Seed. even though their spirit is weak, but it can easy to kill you. Manifestation. When the starfire is full, it manifests seed born in the heart to become planted in the spirit. The spirit births the Yin spirit. The Yin spirit opens the Yao mansion. Spiritual manifestation. Oh, your leaf hand is a manifestation. The consciousness can become tangible? Zhuamo asked. Of course, it's so simple. Do you really need to think about it? Pu Yao's face was full of disdain. However, you just entered manifestation. You're very far off from spirit seed. What is called seed born in the heart? Zhuamo couldn't help but ask, his head bloated. You'll know when it is time. Pu Yao had used up his patience. Then now, solve it yourself. Pu Yao said impatiently before disappearing. They are going to attack. Gong Sun Cha pulled Zhuamo back. The attacking posture of the other side was so obvious even an idiot could see. Zhuamo couldn't help but become nervous. Pulling Gong Sun Cha and Chun Yucheng, he pushed his voice low. Prepare to escape. Where? Chun Yucheng's face was puzzled. Gong Sun Cha suddenly opened his mouth. Towards the Jie River. The Jie River? Little Mountain Jie? Zhuamo was very surprised. Isn't that heading for the net? The endless ocean is vast and borderless. We need to fly multiple months to see land. There is no place to hide. Gong Sun Cha was very calm, a hint of heat in his eyes. When it's time, these people will all scatter. We'll go the opposite way and break through. They definitely wouldn't have thought of it. They just came from Little Mountain Jie. Little Mountain Jie definitely has fallen. If we go to Little Mountain Jie, we have no escape. Chun Yucheng was frightened by Gong Sun Cha's suggestion. So frightened he woke up. This is not certain. Gong Sun Cha shook his head. If Little Mountain Jie has fallen, what would come definitely wouldn't just be this little amount of Yao. This is a little? Chun Yucheng pointed at the organized and solemn Yao army in the sky, and shouted. To us it seems like a lot. But if they want to attack Sky Moon Jie, it is far too few, Gong Sun Cha said quickly. Zhuamo instantly reacted. You mean they are a little troop that snuck in? Possible. Gong Sun Cha said. What did they sneak in for? I don't know, they probably have a target? Zhuamo suddenly thought of what Pu Yao had said. Did these people really come to find him? No, to find the Yama of the stars in daytime? He continued to weigh the choices in his heart. Truthfully, Gong Sun Cha's suggestion was very dangerous. No, it was extremely dangerous. But Zhuamo felt that the success of that suggestion was very likely. From this, it could be seen that he was in support of Gong Sun Cha's suggestion. Chose which one? He was just a little Xiuzhe that had just broken through to Ningmai and hadn't seen much. Facing a choice that would determine life and death, he couldn't help but hesitate. Yet the other didn't give the time to hesitate. The sky above the other side's troop was suddenly dark. Strong Ling power ripples were like a harsh wind that swept past. Damn it. Zhuamo jumped in fright. The other side was going to attack. The Ling power ripples passing through the air were the same as Yang Fiend hard lightning, but the terrifying presence it gave off was hundreds of times stronger. He didn't doubt that their attack would flatten all of Desolate Wood Reef. If he didn't run now, when could he run? He grabbed Gong Sun Cha and Chun Yucheng, not caring for anything else, and suddenly jumped into the water. A gold light flashed, and the Buddha sound hoop landed in Zhuamo's bosom. The presence of the formation on the Desolate Wood Reef weakening. The Desolate Wood Reef instantly exploded. He ran. Zhuamo ran. Run. Everyone run. At this time, with a large sound, a bolt of lightning twisted and struck the Desolate Wood Reef. Dong. A muffled sound hit everyone's heart. Those Xiuzhe with weak cultivations bled from their mouths and nose. Everyone couldn't help but turn their head. The Desolate Wood Reef with its layers of formations was like paper in front of the lightning, cleanly wiped out. More than 10 of the Xiuzhe that moved too slowly were swept by the after ripples and torn to countless pieces, not even having the time shout before their souls were destroyed. In the ocean, Zhuamo didn't have it good either. The blood inside his body was roiling. His Ling power almost spiraled out of control. Gong Sun Cha and Chun Yucheng's faces were pale. The power of the one attack was so powerful that it even passed into the ocean. At the border of life and death, Zhuamo became calm. A date seed appeared on his hand, A talisman ship was carved on it. This date seed ship had been taken from Nan Mingzi's body. However, it required too much Ling power, so he hadn't found out how to use it. In seclusion this time, after finishing forging the 5 essence sword set, Zuemo had spent a lot of effort on the talismans that he did not understand. He hadn't expected that he found some methods, and including this date seed boat. At this time, he didn't dare to hold anything back, the Ling power in his body furiously flooding towards the date seed boat. A little date red wooden boat with an old aura appeared in front of everyone. Zuomo's hand moved. They felt the scene in front of them blur, and then they were inside the ship. The ship was dry and clean. The water outside the ship seemed to be stopped by an invisible power, unable to enter. Zuomo hurriedly directed the date seed ship to sink to the bottom. The thick water could stop the search from the other's consciousness. If they could flee to a place that the other could not detect them, they would be temporarily safe. Chapter 204 Improvement. The date seed ship submerged at a fast rate. In a blink, it had reached 10 li under the surface. Through the windows on the ship, the outside was pitch black. The surroundings were silent. The noise from the outside was completely blocked. Everyone finally relaxed. The Yao army used one attack to destroy any of the hopes they had left. Silly Bird shook the water off. She looked like the chicken in soup broth, with all of the drooping features. Even the proud Silly Bird was scared half to death by the hard lightning that had come from the sky, and became much more docile. When Zuomo had come out of seclusion, he had taken Silly Bird and the others with him. Chun Yucheng collapsed on the ground, heaving. By comparison, Gong Sun Cha was much more composed, but there was still a hint of fear lingering in his eyes. Of everyone, the only ones that could truly maintain their calm were the 3 golden armor guards. As usual, they held their swords and stood like statues. Zuomo had recovered from the nervousness. Seeing everyone was complete and whole, his mood became much better. Just having escaped death, no one in the ship had any interest in talking, all of them catching their breaths and calming their minds. After a while, Zuomo found his mind had relaxed greatly and stood up, and began inspecting the date seed ship. During his seclusion, even though he had figured out how to activate the date seed ship, but he hadn't studied it. Right now, the date seed ship was their life-saving talisman. He didn't dare to leave it up to chance. He walked around the cabin of the ship, closely inspecting it. Chun Yucheng and Gong Sun Cha saw his actions and perceptively chose not to speak. This was. Zuomo carefully inspected the formations carved on the date seed ship, and was very shocked. A Jingshi talisman. The date seed ship was a 4th grade talisman, and it was even a rare Jingshi talisman. Jingshi talismans were talismans that could use Jingshi as a source of power. Those were usually large-sized talismans. The 1,000-wing boat that Zuomo had seen in Dongfu was a classical example of a Jingshi talisman. Historically, only large sect would forge Jingshi talismans. The materials that were needed were not something a normal Xiuzha could afford. There were some Jingshi talismans for single-person use, but not many. Compared to the Ling power inside Jingshi, the Ling power inside Xiuzha was much purer and easier to control. This date seed ship was a Jingshi talisman. It could carry 100 Xiuzha, able to fly either in air or in the water. Zuomo's interest was stirred up. This was the first time he had seen a Jingshi talisman. He instantly started to study the formations on the ship. Jingshi talismans were talismans where formations were used most purely. Xiuzha only had to make some simple commands, and it could work on its own. In a short period of time, he found the locations to put in Jingshi. The cabin was empty, and did not even have tables or chairs. The place to insert the Jingshi was on the ceiling. The ceiling of the cabin had a depiction of the Big Dipper, the 7 stars connected. Each star was the place to put in Jingshi. Zuomo took out 7 3rd-grade Jingshi from his ring to insert in the positions of the Big Dipper. When he shoved the last piece of Jingshi in, everyone felt the cabin light up. A date-colored red light emanated from the ship. Wow, Jingshi talisman? Gong Sun Cha was surprised. And a Jingshi talisman that I got from Nan Mingzi. Zuomo stared at the formations on the ship, calculating inside without turning his head to answer. Through the consciousness leaf hand, He could clearly see the seals running through the ship. The more he saw, the more admiration he had. Before this, he had never seen a Jingshi talisman before, so he never had seen Jingshi talisman formations before. The formations were like a gigantic mesh going through the entire date seed ship like they were the channels of the ship. Ling power flowed out from the 7 Jingshi into the channels and activated the formation. He quickly found the differences between the date seed ship and the talismans he had studied before. The Ling power that came out of the Jingshi was very steady. Normal talismans consumed the Ling power of Xiuzha. The Ling power would have a variety of changes and would not be so steady. There were advantages and disadvantages to both methods. Jingshi talismans did not consume the Ling power of the Xiuzha. As long as there was Jingshi, it could keep working. The disadvantage was that its uses were set, and it was less flexible to adjusting to sudden changes. Normal talismans were the exact opposite. Due to consuming the Ling power of the Xiuzha, it could not compare in how long Jingshi talismans could be used. However, they could do many things and were very good at adjusting to sudden changes. Zhuomo's heart suddenly moved. If the two advantages could be put together, that would be great. Once the idea popped up into his head, it could not be erased. After studying for a while, he started to actually ponder if the flash of inspiration he had was realistic or not. The space inside the date seed ship was enough for him to set up large amounts of formations. The smaller the space was, the harder it was to set up formations. Forging experts could set down multiple formations in a flying sword the size of a finger. Zhuo was far from reaching that level. Space was very important for him. The bigger the ship was, the easier it was for him to make modifications. There were a total of 3 formations on the date seed ship. One was a space formation, one was a Ling shield formation, the last was a water movement formation. Zhuo paid more attention to the Ling shield formation. Its defensive ability was average. He decided to change the micro-light formation to a 7 bright micro-light formation. Zhuo only needed to put 7 bright light formation into the micro-light formation, and the defensive power of the shield would increase by at least 50%. This technique of interlocking child formations was something he had comprehended from the Skyring Moonchime formation. The structure of the bright light formation was simple and easy to carve, so Zhuo quickly finished the 7 bright micro-light formation. The Ling shield over the ship gradually changed, the light becoming more intense and the shield thicker than it had been before. Zhuo nodded in satisfaction. It seems his skill in making formations had improved once again. Before, this wouldn't have been so simple. Strengthening the Ling shield meant that the consumption of Ling power would increase correspondingly. However, Zhuo did not worry about this. Right now, he lacked for everything except Jingshi. Gu has lots of Jingshi. He suddenly hit his head. Right, how did he forget his greatest advantage? Chun Yucheng and Gong Suncha were frightened by Zhuo's action. The two exchanged looks of puzzlement. Jingshi. Right now he had piles of Jingshi. Before, he had been thinking of carving an offensive formation on the ship that could be controlled by a person. That way, they didn't need to leave the ship, but they could fight against their enemies. When Zhuo realized his advantage, he suddenly reacted. He had made a mistake. Since it was hard to control Jingshi talismans precisely, rather than think of ways to increase the control over it, it was better to give the talisman a formation that did not need to be controlled, like a cloud lightning net. He only needed it to protect the ship. As to increasing the maneuverability of the Jingshi talisman, he could slowly study it. The high consumption of the cloud electrical lightning net was nothing for Zhuo, who wanted to keep his life. The more he thought, the cleverer he found the idea. Even though there were still big gaps, but it was the most realistic plan at present. No matter what, his little life came first. He took out a large pile of materials and started to carve formations inside the cabin. What is Xixiang doing? Chun Yucheng asked. Gong Suncha looked over. I don't understand, but he seems to be setting up formations. We should run, not setting up formations now. Chun Yucheng said hurriedly. I don't know. Gong Suncha was also puzzled. He could see what Xixiang was generally doing. Even though he didn't know why Xixiang was putting up formations now, but he believed in Xixiang's judgment. Currently, The only thing he was so shocked by was the fact that Xixiang seemed to be playing with the Jingshi talisman. Xixiang could modify Jingshi talismans. He knew it was much harder to modify talismans than to remake them. After a talisman was successfully forged, it was one complete entity and had reached an equilibrium. Modifying was equivalent to first breaking the equilibrium, and then setting a new equilibrium. Had Xiang's skills with formations reached such a level? The golden armor guard stood silently. Silly Bird had recovered from the fright, raising her bird head and stepping her unique bird walk. Zuomo was very careful. Bright light formation was only an enhancing formation and did not have much effect on the equilibrium of the talisman. However, Cloud Lightning Net was a third-grade formation. It was very strong and needed large amounts of Ling power. Zuomo needed to add a few more channels to conduct Ling power to satisfy the Cloud Lightning Net. The Cloud Lightning Net was not difficult for Zuomo. The difficulty laid in setting the seals to channel the Ling power. The formations on the date seed boat before had been very complete. In order to add more seals to increase Ling power pathways, he needed to change the entire structure. This was the most difficult part. If he wasn't careful, he could most likely cause the Ling power pathways to intersect and then collapse. Zuomo was very clear about this, so he continuously modeled it in his head before proceeding. For hours later, he finally thought it through and started to move. What he did first was increase the number of Jingshi. The Ling power expenditure of Cloud Lightning Net was very large. 7 pieces of Jingshi was not enough to satisfy its needs. Zuomo added another 21 pieces of Jingshi. On the ceiling of the ship cabin, 28 stars shone. To save his life, Zuomo did not care how much Jingshi he had to spend. Right after, he started to set up the Cloud Lightning Net and added more Ling power channeling seals. This modification took 12 hours. When he finished, he was exhausted. However, he finally finished. Hiss hiss. Sounds came from the date red Ling shield. Immediately after, countless fine lines of miniature lightning appeared on the surface of the Ling shield, swimming like little snakes. Fine lightning appeared at astounding speed and gathered. In the blink of an eye, a net appeared on the Ling shield. A net constructed of arm-thick lightning. It was like a silver net had covered all of the date seed ship. The lightning net slightly trembled, the sound slowly weakening until the hisses had disappeared. What was wondrous was that, even though they were in the water, the lightning net on the Ling shield showed no signs of dissipating, but was as dense as any other object, silently covering the Ling shield. The presence of the date seed ship instantly changed. Chapter 205 War Chess. Where are we heading? Chun Yuqing asked uncertainly. Jia River. Gong Sun Cha's face was relaxed, half lying on the bottom of the cabin, relaxed and idle. How do you know? Chun Yuqing looked worriedly at Zuomo Xixiang, who was still working on the date seed ship. Xixiang had been working for several hours and showed no signs of stopping. Xixiang might look careful and conservative, but if he's pressured, he's vicious and decisive. Gong Sun Cha said unconcernedly. What happens if Little Mountain Jia has been taken by the Yaoma? Chun Yucheng's face was slightly pale. The strong offensive power of the Yao army had almost destroyed his soul. No way about it. It's all up to luck. Gong Sun Cha stretched out his waist and laid down completely. With a hiss, a silver light suddenly flashed outside the ship. Just having laid down, Gong Sun Cha instantly sat up, eyes looking outside. When he saw the lightning outside the Ling shield, he first stilled, and then had joy on his face. Chun Yucheng, who was in a fragile state of mind, was half scared to death by the noise. How's the power of that thing? Gong Sun Cha pointed outside the ship, and asked Zuomo, who had finally stopped and walked over. Better than nothing. Zuomo sat down in exhaustion. My skill in formations isn't enough. This lightning net doesn't have any dead ends, but it is way too loose. Don't have high hopes about the power. Gong Sun Cha nodded, and then asked, how far have we traveled? This boat goes 100 li every 2 hours. How long has it been? 12 hours. Then it's 600 li, Zuomo said. Seems no one has chased after us. I wonder what this Yao army is looking for. This is an unexpected calamity. Chun Yuqing sighed. Zuomo naturally could not say the Yao army was searching for him, but seeing Chun Yucheng's worried expression, he knew this docile person had been frightened too deeply today, and hurried to comfort him. The two Shidi had two completely different personalities. Chun Yucheng was docile, and somewhat lacking in courage, only interested in animals. Gong Sun Cha was the exact opposite. He was cunning and daring, calm when there was trouble, and had a devious and dark character. He didn't have much interest in butchering. Follow the flow. Gong Sun Cha inserted and then raised his delicate face, his eyes shining. Xixiang, there's nothing to do now. Why don't you get them to practice their cooperation? Zuomo understood that Gong Sun Cha meant the 3 golden armor guards. Cooperation. Gong Sun Cha's words reminded him. The blow that the Yao army had given them was too strong. The troops that were so organized they were almost insane, so neat that it seemed almost impossible, and that lightning attack that they couldn't even hold their heads up against. Zuomo felt that he wouldn't forget it in his life. The shock and panic of the Xiuzha was the perfect definition of the word rabble. Every time he thought of it, he felt coldness seep uncontrollably from his heart. The Yao army gave all the Xiuzha on the desolate wood reef a lesson. Even the stupidest person could see the difference between the two, and could feel the difference in power. Zuomo suddenly had a feeling that the era of individual power was nearing its end. However, he quickly threw the problem to the back of his mind. A big problem like an era ending, it wasn't something a little Ningmai like him could relate to. But he agreed greatly with Gong Sun Cha's suggestion. However, while he agreed, how to accomplish it was the true problem. I don't know how. We can slowly try. Gong Sun Cha's decisive tone made Zuomo look at him. He grinned. It's better than losing our lives. For some reason, Zuomo felt Gong Sun Shidi's delicate face was like the raised head of a snake, vicious and cold. But when he turned his eyes towards Gong Sun, Shidi's smile was so sunny and timid that Zuomo felt he was mistaken. Okay. He nodded. Before having seen the Yao army, Zuomo might have found it extraneous, but right now he didn't hesitate. This was useful. Very useful. For him, starting from a blank slate wasn't a new experience. Before, as long as he could make Jingshi, he would work with all his effort. Now Zuomo discovered that his little life was more important. His belief suddenly turned. Anything that could save his little life, he would definitely put everything in. The two crowded together and started to discuss. Both were greenhorns, the mood was vibrant, but quickly, the discussion reached a standoff. Words had no proof, especially when the two had divergent views. No one could persuade the other. At this time, Gong Sun Cha did not care Zuomo was his Xixiang. His face was flushed as he argued, his expression ferocious. He no longer looked like a weak and bashful young master. If we each have a troop and can really fight, that would be nice. Zuomo sighed. Then who is right, it naturally can be seen. Yes. Gong Sun Cha's face was also bitter, holding his head and sighing. Talking soldiers on paper, it is useless. A voice suddenly came inside Zuomo's mind. Want to try? I've got a way. Pu Yao suddenly came out. What way? Zuomo's mind became alert. Pu Yao might like to boast, but he occasionally had some real skill. Pu Yao looked at him. Actually, this kind of thing has been played since a long time ago, like Seal Soldier Battleboard, like puppet chess. What is that? Hearing those two new terms, Zuomo couldn't help but be curious. It is a kind of war chess. War chess. There's many ways to play, like one-on-one, or many against many. Pu Yao seemed to suddenly sink into his memories, refocusing after a while. I remember it was quite fashionable back then. You have those. Zuomo looked suspiciously at Pu Yao. No. Pu Yao shook his head. The most important part is the rules. It is very easy to make them. He threw a ball of light at Zuomo. Here. These are the rules for all kinds of war chess games that I played before, and how to make them. When did you become this kind? Zuomo's gaze became even more suspicious, but his hands were not slow at all, rapidly catching the ball of light. I don't want you to die this quickly. Pu Yao looked scornfully at Zuomo before disappearing. The date seed ship silently slid along the bottom in the pitch-black water. For everyone, this was a very long period of boredom. Chun Yu-chung seemed to be accustomed to this kind of boredom. He continued to busy himself in his experiments. Zhou Enmo occasionally took out the golden crow fire. He seemed to be forging something. So boring. Gong Sun Cha yawned. He seemed to be the only person that didn't have anything to do. He had thought about teasing Silly Bird to relieve his boredom, but Silly Bird ignored him, proudly strutting her bird walk in the cabin. Lil Black climbed around the cabin without exhaustion. Lil Pagoda floated in the air, spinning in its spot. The 3 golden armor guards were like 3 statues, not having moved a finger in days. Originally, Gong Sun Cha had been worried they might meet some water element ling beasts. In the legends, there were many terrifying ling beasts in the endless ocean. However, their luck seemed to be exceptional, and they traveled smoothly. But these days were really so bland. Done, Zhou Enmo suddenly stated, making Gong Sun Cha jump in fright. He crowded over. What's done? What is this? Chess. And something called a war chess, Zhou Enmo said uncertainly. I don't know if I made it correctly. Come, let's try. Gong Sun Cha, so bored he had almost fallen asleep, instantly jumped up. Okay. Zhou Enmo took out a jade scroll, recording down some of the rules that Pu Yao gave him, and threw it to Gong Sun Cha. Interesting. Gong Sun Cha took the jade scroll. After a look he became alert. Zhou Enmo also started to read the rules. Reading it in detail he was instantly frightened. Fuck. This was that complicated? The dense paragraphs of rules made his head feel numb. He heard Gong Sun Cha's voice full of enthusiasm. This bit is interesting, yes? Oh, I understand. Zhou Enmo could only force himself to keep reading. An hour later, when Zhou Enmo's eyes were unfocused and his brain faint, he suddenly heard Gong Sun Cha say, so interesting. It's really too interesting. Zhou Enmo raised his head in shock. He saw Gong Sun Cha look excitedly at him and say, let's begin. If I know there was something as fun as this, I wouldn't have learned how to butcher. What Zhou Enmo forged was puppet chess. It was simpler. The size of the Seal Soldier battle board was bigger, requiring better skill at forging, and had more complex rules. Basically, puppet chess was made from a set of little illusions. In a circle 1 zhang wide, miniature mountains and rivers were perfectly depicted. There were even clouds in the sky that slowly changed. Suddenly, these white clouds started to rain. Under the rain, the water in the river suddenly grew. A Xiozha wearing Taoist robes suddenly charged into the sky from the river, slowly scanned the surroundings. Seeing there was not anything, the person went back into the river. Exquisite. Truly too exquisite. Gong Sun Cha gaped, his eyes changing from excited to scorching. Zhou Enmo was also shocked by such exquisiteness. Even though he had made it from beginning to end, but he had never thought of the result of the end product. This wasn't some chessboard, it was like a complete little world. Everything inside would naturally cycle on their own. So wondrous. Zhou Enmo's mind became blank. Quick, how to play. Gong Sun Cha urged. Zhou Enmo refocused and handed him a piece of 3rd-grade Black Days crystal. Put your mind into it. He also took up a piece of Black Days crystal and flooded it with his consciousness. He felt the scenery in front of his eyes change, and he seemed to be looking from the sky. His eyes unconsciously looked down. Yao. 9 Yao were arranged in an organized square. He could clearly feel the connection between him and the 9 Yao. He was even able to use the eyes of any of the Yao to see everything in the surroundings. At the same time, the information of the 9 Yao flowed through his mind. His mind moved, and a Yao suddenly stepped 3 paces forward, leaving the troop. He instantly controlled it to do many strange and awkward poses. So interesting. Very interesting. Zhou Enmo was in shock. Chapter 206. What was that? Zhou Enmo was very depressed. In the first 2 matches he had won. The 3rd round was tied. They also tied for the 4th and 5th. After the 5th round he never won again. In total, they had battled for 10 matches. 5 losses, 3 ties and 2 wins. That wasn't a good result. The more they played, the greater the gap between them became. He was very surprised. Gong Sun Shidi, who looked shy and weak, was very aggressive. In the last few matches, not soon after the match had started, Zuo was killed off. Zuo lost so badly that even Pu Yao couldn't keep looking. I'll go. Pu Yao jumped out, took over control, and started to fight against Gong Sun Cha. Gong Sun Cha was instantly obliterated. The strong ability to command that Pu Yao displayed made Zuo intoxicated. Pu Yao, who seemed quite feminine, was extremely aggressive when he was in command. You guys can slowly torture yourselves. Go will play on Ji's own. Zuo muttered inside. This person and this Yao were natural-born militants. In other words, they were born for the role. Especially when he saw the expressions of the person and the Yao, he shuddered. The light flashed in Pu Yao's bloody pupil, a cruel smirk on the corner of his mouth, his actions light lightning. Gong Sun Shitty, after being depressively killed for 20-something matches, his expression wasn't the least bit dejected. His face was like a plum blossom, slightly flushed, the light in his eyes continuously flickering. He was more excited the more he fought. These two perverts. Zuo had long known of Pu Yao's perverseness. He hadn't thought Gong Sun Shitty would also be so perverse when he played war chess. Did everyone's heart have a perverse chord? Shaking his head, Zuo smacked his lips. All the war chess games that Pu Yao gave were for commanders, and were all Yaoma. Xiuzha, if they were not the enemy, they were cannon fodder. That made him very unaccustomed to it. Okay, who made it so that they were war chess games for Yaoma? Zuo completely threw the last thought behind his head. He decided to continue his own cultivation. Speaking of cultivation, he was studying formations. He had seen many kinds of formations already. The soul-tethered talisman that was so rare, Jingshi talismans, he had all that. Adding on the aid of his consciousness, his comprehension of formations was much deeper than normal Xiuzha. He had many skills. He cultivated Ling power, spiritual power, and also body cultivation on the side. He also knew many spells. Such variety was not a good quality. In reality, all of these were not his true cultivation path. His primary cultivation was formations. The direction of this originated in Pu Yao's statement. The core of all spells is formations. From the uncertainty in the beginning, to the gradual understanding, to the rock-hard determination of present, Zuo had never stopped studying. Even though he was far from the level Pu Yao had spoken of, he was full of confidence in himself. For example, the micro-formations in dan-making were the products of his continuous investigations. He didn't know if anyone else studied them, but the micro-formations had brought enormous profit for him. Without the micro-formations, there was no golden crow fire. There were many paths to increasing one's strength, but not every path was suited for him. Since people were skilled at commanding, then this matter will be given to those skilled in that. It was the wisest choice for him to do what he was most skilled in. He put his attention back on the date seed ship. In his view, there was a lot of room for modifications, especially to Zuo, who was skilled in microformations. As it was related to his life, he had to think hard. In the cabin, 3 people all had different expressions. Chun Yucheng propped his head on his hand, his eyes lost. He had maintained this position for a long time, occasionally muttering. Gong Sun Cha was extremely energetic, his eyes focused on war chess, completely ignorant of the piece of black day's crystal that was floating in the air with no one else present. Zuo climbed up and down, his body covered in wood shavings, all kinds of tools and talismans occasionally on his hands. Lil Pagoda skipped behind him, not letting go of one piece go to waste, all sucked into the tower. Not far away, Silly Bird looked in disdain at Lil Pagoda. Lil Black silently waved its antennae as it climbed around. A long time later, when the formation in front of him had finished, Zuo finally released a breath and stretched. Without any requirements, without any limitations, as long as he could think of it and he had enough materials, he would try it. This kind of experimentation that he had never had before made him feel unspeakably comfortable. He had done everything he could think of to modify the date seed ship. Some were forging methods, some were dam-making methods, some were formation setting methods, including the formation discs that he hadn't used for a time. They were all put to use on the date seed ship. The date seed ship was completely transformed. The shuttle-shaped date seed ship became even sharper, especially the bow where 7 blue spikes were arranged in a row. These 7 blue spikes had been obtained from the 4th grade blue-spiked crocodile, that Zhuo had killed on the desolate wood reef. The blue jade-like spike was covered in cinnabar seals all over. The body of the ship was thinner and longer than before, like a swordfish. It made the ship look more dangerous and intrusive. The direct result was that its speed in the water suddenly increased. In 2 hours it could travel 150 li, having increased by 50%. Zhuo added a control formation to the Ling shield outside. It was almost attached to the body of the ship now, like a skin rather than the round bubble it had been before. The lightning net seemed to be engraved on the Ling shield now rather than on its exterior. It was possible to see a thread of lightning occasionally swim by silently on the Ling shield. Zhuo had cut off anything like the masts. Those things were more for decoration than practicality. But even so, Zhuo was still not satisfied. He studied the water movement formation that the date seed ship had now, and found that this water movement formation was the reason the date seed ship was so slow in the water. Compared to flying in the air, the speed of travel in the water made him feel it was as slow as a turtle. For example, the thunder-flowing light wings that he had bought from Hongyang could reach 1,500 li in 2 hours at full speed. Even the third-grade Lucky Cloud that did not pursue speed, but was famed for its elegance, could easily surpass a speed of 300 li every 2 hours. Having never possessed a water movement talisman before, Zhuo naturally could not be satisfied with the speed of the date seed ship. A 4th-grade date seed ship that couldn't even catch up to a 3rd-grade Lucky Cloud. Wasn't that a joke? He completely forgot the resistance in the water was much stronger than flying in the air. When he realized this problem, it was when he had increased the speed of the date seed ship to 200 li every 2 hours, because he discovered that, no matter how he altered the water movement formation, he could not increase the speed of the date seed ship. He suddenly recalled a move that he had practiced before in the Li Water Sword scripture. Flowing water. Other than being traceless and hard to discover, flowing water also was fast. It wasn't an extremely fast, but a comfortable and smooth, natural flow. He had practiced Li Water Sword scripture in the water before. In the water, flowing water was much faster. The crux of flowing water was to change with the water flow, like water flowing from high up down. If he could turn the date seed ship into the water drop sword, that would be good. This daring idea suddenly flashed through his head. This idea made him excited. After thinking for a long time, he finally found a solution. He had just finished it now. He used several hundred little formations to successfully model a situation similar to flowing water. The speed of the date seed ship was increased to 400 li every 2 hours. Zhuo did not know the market. If he knew the 4th-grade water movement talismans on the market were all around 100 li every 2 hours, that even the upper 4th-grade talismans were about 200 li every 2 hours, he certainly wouldn't have been stubborn to increase the speed of the date seed ship. Such terrifying speed was not without its limits. Due to the high number of formations, it was extremely difficult to control. Zhuo found it very hard to control himself, and had to let Lil Pagoda take control of the formations. These formations mostly were related to water, and Lil Pagoda was the best hand at controlling the 5 elements. The other point was the consumption of Jingshi had multiplied, especially when they were traveling at full speed. It would use 10 Jing of Ling power every 2 hours, which was 10 pieces of 3rd-grade Jingshi, 10 times that of the thunder-flowing light wings. But in Zhuo's perspective, this was worth it. If he couldn't keep his little life, then no matter how much Jingshi he had, it was useless. The present date seed ship finally reached the level of life-saving in his heart. But before he could rest, suddenly, a feeling of danger came into Zhuo's mind. Zhuo's heart beat heavily. He couldn't help but look outside. In the black water, a dot of light suddenly lit up far away. This dot of light was extremely small, like a hair, but in a blink, it was the size of a sesame seed. Such fast speed. Zhuo inhaled sharply. He suddenly remembered the endless ocean that countless people talked about, which had no border, was the playground of strong Ling beasts. Run! Connected to his mind, Lil Pagoda instantly light up. The Jingshi of the 28 stars in the ceiling of the cabin lit up. The cabin so bright it seemed like day. Vroom vroom vroom. The ship slightly trembled. Under its maximum speed, the pressure that the ship was under was very terrifying. The sudden change alarmed the other two. Chun Yucheng raised his head in confusion. The excited blush on Gong Sun Cha's face had not retreated. Gong Sun Cha reacted first, the lightning speed of the date seed ship frightening him. So fast? When did the ship become this fast? He wasn't nervous, his face curious as he walked next to Zuomo. It isn't the time to discuss this, Zuomo said in a deep voice. Something has locked onto us. What? Gong Sun Cha's face was curious. However, when his gaze turned to the outside, his face suddenly changed. Not far away from the ship, a pair of vicious eyes about the size of a lantern stared at the date seed ship. When the two people looked at its body, the two couldn't help but inhale. An enormous shadow appeared in their vision. Black water that flowed relentlessly was like a mountain that was clearly separate from the surrounding river. The pair of indifferent and vicious eyes were as bright as moons in the black water. The three felt as though they had fell into a glacier, their entire body cold. Chapter 207 Moon Eye Blackwater Beast. What is that? Gong Sun Cha asked woodenly. Don't know. Zuomo's answer was similarly wooden. The pitiable Chun Yucheng just fainted. This is a moon eye blackwater beast, Pu Yao drawled. Having just sadistically killed Gong Sun Cha for more than 20 rounds, he was in a pleasurable state, his attitude exceptionally harmonious. Moon eye blackwater beast? They mostly live in the bottom of the endless ocean. They have large bodies, but they are all looks and no substance. They don't have anything good on their bodies. The only things are the moon beads and the blackwater. Pu Yao only glanced once, before becoming scornful. Moonbead. Blackwater. Zuomo's heart leaped. He had never heard of the moon eye blackwater beast before, but he wasn't unfamiliar with the moonbead and blackwater. The uses of blackwater were very broad, it was not cheap, and moonbeads were not just expensive, there were very few of them on the market, and were some of the best materials for forging. However, he didn't dare to have any greed now. The presence that this moon eye blackwater beast had was too intimidating. What grade is this guy? Any weaknesses? He asked. 4th grade. As to weaknesses, I don't know. Pu Yao added. I'm not familiar. The speed of the date seed ship was at maximum, yet that moon eye blackwater beast was easily keeping up. As expected of a natural water element beast, his date seed ship was not a match for this kind of water movement speed. He stopped the ship. In any case, he couldn't escape from the beast. What reassured his heart was this moon eye black water beast was a 4th grade Ling beast. What gave him a headache was that they were in the water. Zuomo might have defeated a blue-spiked crocodile, but that was on land and not in the water. If they had been in the water, Zuomo wouldn't have even been able to escape. Water element Ling beasts could use all of their offensive power in the water. One ship and one beast faced off. Zuomo and the others didn't dare to move rashly. The moon eye blackwater beast seemed curious about this object that it had never seen before. Inside the ship, Zuomo cast a spell on Gong Sun Cha. You're in command of them. After playing war chess, Zuomo realized Gong Sun Shidi's talent in this area. Since he really couldn't make anything of them, it was better to give them to Shidi. Gong Sun Cha stilled, but he instantly took over the command of the 3 golden armor guards. In his consciousness, when the 3 golden armor guards appeared, a shocked expression uncontrollably floated onto his face. He had always assumed that the golden armor guards were living people. Now he discovered that these 3 mysterious experts were puppets. He quickly managed to calm down. Gradually, his breathing started to speed up. He felt his body was uncontrollably shaking. It was not fear nor terror, but excitement. This was his first fight where he was in command. Even though his subordinates were 3 golems, when he thought of the upcoming battle, he felt his body temperature rising. Even his blood was burning. He suddenly closed his eyes, his rushed breathing slowly calming. When he opened his eyes again, he looked much calmer, but the light in the deepest part of his eyes was like a blade's edge. Zuomo also threw away all other thoughts. Other than engaging in a fight, there didn't seem to be other options. The other side was a 4th grade Ling beast in the water, but on his side were 4 Ningmai. Zuomo felt there was a chance. What he was worried about was they would create too much noise and attract other Ling beasts. That would not be good. Just as Zuo pondered when to attack, Gong Sun Cha suddenly ran to Chen Yucheng, who had fainted, and furiously shook him awake. Xixiang, where's your Ling butterfly? Ling butterfly, Ling butterfly. Chen Yucheng's face was confused. After a while, he managed to react, and hurriedly took out the beast service card. Ling butterfly, Ling butterfly. Gong Sun Cha looked helplessly at the confusion and panic on Chen Yucheng's face and could only softly comfort him. Xixiang, don't panic, just summon your Ling butterfly. Oh. It might have been that Gong Sun Cha's comfort was effective. Chen Yucheng calmed down slightly, and summoned the Ling butterfly. The blue Ling butterfly appeared in front of him, nimbly fluttering its wings. Zuo was slightly surprised. Every time the blue butterfly flapped its wings, he could feel a rich stream of water element power. It seemed that the deep of the endless ocean was the place the water element blue butterfly could be most effective. But Zuo did not understand. Why did Gong Sun Cha get Chen Yucheng to summon a blue butterfly? The blue butterfly was only a third-grade Ling butterfly, definitely not a match for the big guy outside. Also, while the deep of the endless ocean had rich water element power, it really was not a habitat for butterflies. Xixiang, I remember your Ling butterfly has 2 water element spells. Which 2? Gong Sun Cha asked rapidly. Water movement and water power. Chen Yucheng reflexively responded. Zuo's eyes suddenly lit up. He understood what Gong Sun Shidi wanted to do. Gong Sun Cha did not waste time, pointing at the 3 golden armor guards and saying, Xixiang, get the Ling butterfly to use the spells on these 3. Oh. Chen Yucheng hurriedly commanded the blue butterfly. The blue butterfly lightly moved its wings, and 2 water blue spells hit one of the golden armor guards. After continuously casting 8 spells on the 3 golden armor guards plus Zuo, the blue butterfly appeared tired. The wings were moving slower than they had been before. When the 2 spells hit Zuo, he felt his Ling power become lively. The changes in the water flow outside the ship became much more clear. Even though he didn't know what the effect would be, it was the correct decision to give Gong Sun Shidi control of the golden armor guards. If it was him, he wouldn't have thought of Chen Shidi's Ling butterfly. With these 2 spells, the gap between the 2 sides had become a little bit smaller. Zuo and Gong Sun Cha looked at each other, and instantly understood what they wanted. Attack first. 3 blue lights suddenly charged at the Moon Eye Blackwater beast. Once they attacked, Zuo had no thoughts about luck. The 3 blue spikes moved first. 4th grade blue spikes, after being forged in golden crow fire, the body of the spikes were filled with characters. It was the strongest killing move of the Date Seed ship, but compared to the enormous body of the Moon Eye Blackwater beast, the 3 blue spikes were not even toothpicks. The Moon Eye Blackwater beast did not show any signs of dodging. The 3 blue spikes disappeared into the black and roiling black water. Boom. The black water, which had been slowly flowing, suddenly rippled ferociously like boiling water. The lantern-sized eyes brightened. Hiss! The 3 people on the ship felt an ear-piercing sound. Zuo's attack had wounded it. The Moon Eye Blackwater beast was enraged. Everyone felt the landscape darken. A wave of black water gathered towards the Date Seed ship from all directions, tying it up tightly. The strength of the black water was extremely high. The ship started to creak as the black water pressed against it. The black water tightly covered the Ling shield like a wall. 3 golden figures with a long red tail heavily struck the water wall outside. Ding ding ding. 3 muffled sounds that were like lightning. The 3 golden armor guards were forcibly bounced back. The seemingly soft-looking black water was as hard as steel. The full power blows of the 3 golden armor guards were not able to move the Moon Eye Blackwater beast. Zuo was shocked. He was very clear about how powerful the 3 golden armor guards were. Each golden armored guard's strength was above his. The attack of the 3 of them at full power was not able to harm the Moon Eye Blackwater beast one bit. If it was said the 3 blue spikes made Zuo joyful, then his heart stilled with this attack. So the restless blackwater around the Moon Eye Blackwater beast was its strongest weapon. Blackwater was one of the most famous heavy waters in the world. With such a large amount of blackwater, it didn't need any other spells. It only needed to control them, and the power would be terrifying. Controlling blackwater. This was the area that the Moon Eye Blackwater beast was truly strong in. Gong Sun Cha also had a shocked expression. The 3 golden armor guards suddenly stopped and suddenly leapt outside again. Zuo also managed to react. Throwing all thoughts to the back of his head, the 5 essence sword set he had already prepared was waiting to attack. Suddenly seeing the actions of the 3 golden armor guards, his own movements slowed. The 3 golden armor guards rushed outside. In the middle, the gloves on their hands lit up. 10,000 appearance gloves. The 3 golden figures were like 3 meteors, striking 3 times. Bam bam bam. The 3 blows were all at the same spot. Boom. Zuomo's consciousness clearly watched the water wall that the 3 golden armor guards attacked only slightly rippled. But behind the water shield, the blackwater body of Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast suddenly shook. A portion of the blackwater almost flowing out of its body. Gong Sun Cha's attack was too beautiful. Zuo suppressed the impulse to roar, and took the opportunity to attack. He didn't use the 5 essence sword set on his hands, but went with the flow and activated the lightning net outside the Ling shield of the Dateseed ship. If this was earlier, lightning of this degree was nothing to the Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast. But the clever attacks of the 3 golden armor guards caused the Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast to lose control of the Blackwater for a very short instant. The relatively weak lightning moved in at this time. Hiss hiss hiss. Countless little bits of lightning flooded the Blackwater. The Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast was in a slight panic. The Blackwater that had been wrapped around the Dateseed ship furiously pressed inwards. Under the heavy pressure, half of the fine lightning was quickly destroyed. However, the state of the 2 sides switched. The devious Zuo attacked it again, and 3 blue spikes soundlessly entered the Blackwater. Arg! The Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast gave a strange howl. Zuomo's eyes blurred, everything shaking. Turning his head over, blood flowed out of Gong Sun Cha's nose and mouth, his face ferocious. The killing intent was so intense in his eyes that Zuomo's heart shook. A red sword energy passed through the black water, aiming straight at the 2 lantern-sized eyes of the Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast. At the same time, another golden armor guard paced several steps and moved up. Bam! The Blackwater wall shrunk back, blocking the red sword energy. Pew! The Blackwater that hurried back was slightly weaker than usual, unable to block such a sharp sword energy. Another water wall. The sword energy which had not expended its power hit the surface, causing ripples and was blocked. Before the Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast could release a breath, the golden armored guard that had moved up smashed heavily into the wall. An expression of scorn appeared in the vicious eyes of the Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast. Smash! They couldn't smash through the water wall. Just as the golden armored guard was going to hit the wall, suddenly, 7 silver sword energies lit up by his side, the silver light flowing. 7 silver sword energies forcefully crashed on the water wall. The 7-star sword formation of the 7-star sword boots. The rippling water wall instantly collapsed, the 7 silver sword energies pointing straight at the eyes of the Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast. For the first time, the Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast had an expression of fear. At this time, it could do nothing except push all the Blackwater in front of it. It needed to stop the 7 silver sword energies. It was so panicked that it did not notice that at some unknown time, a golden figure had sneaked behind it. Face covered in blood, Gong Sun Cha seemed insane, the corners of his mouth coldly rising, his eyes black as they were reflected in the Blackwater, a dash of red flashing past. Chapter 208 Blood Void Movement. Zuo looked at the soft and shy Gong Sun Shidi, who was half collapsed on the deck, face pale, and found it hard to think of him as the battle-crazed guy just now. As he took out medicine for Gong Sun Cha, he thought, this guy is really an extreme militant. Even now, he felt it was slightly unreal. The entire battle was clean and crisp, without any big tribulations. It was done. Zuo didn't even get to use his 5 essence sword set, and the Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast was killed. He had felt the effectiveness of the golden armor guards would not be as great with him as they were on Gong Sun Shidi's hands. But the difference was a bit too big. On land, 1 golden armor guard was enough to deal with a Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast, but in the water, for 3 golden armor guards to kill a Moon-Eye Blackwater Beast, that needed luck. He hadn't thought that Gong Sun Shidi was so strong. Pity about the pair of moon beads. Zuomo's heart hurt. The last ambush by the golden armor guard had sliced the eyes of the moon-eye blackwater beasts in half. What landed in his hands were 4 half-sphere moon beads. Their value had greatly decreased. He had taken a lot of blackwater. The blackwater was not as valuable as moon beads, but it was still a rarity. Even more, it was worth it just to discover Gongsun Shidi's terrifying talent at battle. In troubled times, what was most important was strength. As Gongsun Shidi's talents were continuously uncovered, their strength was increasing. Zuomo was already considering if it was possible for Pu Yao to make a few more golden armor guards. However, Gongsun Shidi's strength was a bit lacking. The shout from the moon-eye blackwater beast had almost taken his little life. In Zuomo's view, the direction that Gongsun Shidi should develop in was as a battle general, being skilled at commanding in battle, and not pursuing individual power. But his individual power was too weak, even weaker than Chun Yucheng. If he was the least bit careless, he could lose his life. Having seen the Yao army, Zuomo naturally realized that people like Gongsun Shidi were actually very strong. These days, hiring a sword xiu of some strength wasn't hard, that just needed Jingshi. But hiring a xiuzhe who would command, that was not simple. Even more, Gongsun Shidi was the closest of all. They had gone through tribulations together, and was very reliable. How could he get Gongsun Shidi to command in battle, but not lose his little life? Talisman? Even the best talisman would be scrap metal in Gongsun Shidi's hands. He basically could not use them to their full potential. Practice some life-saving spell? At this time, would it be too late? Gongsun Shidi might have talent at commanding, but his talent at cultivation seemed very average. Zuomo ran into trouble. Suddenly he hit his head. Chapter 209 Ma Fan. Where are we? Chun Yuqing curiously poked his head out of the ship. After traveling for more than 3 months underwater, the three felt very suffocated. Little Mountain Jie. Zuomo said uncertainly. None of them had ever been to Little Mountain Jie, and had never paid any attention to information about Little Mountain Jie. The fresh air made the trio's chests instantly become refreshed and expand. They all poked their heads out of the cabin to greedily suck in the air. On both sides of the river were endless series of mountain peaks. But quickly, the three completely shut up. They looked dazedly at the mountain peaks at the 2 sides. Smashed rocks and broken trees laid everywhere. Occasionally, there were corpses and pieces of clothing. The mountains which had originally been green were now barren. It can't be this bad. Chun Yucheng's voice drifted out as if it was sleep-talking. Gongsun Cha was the first to respond. His face was not very good, lowering his head and saying to himself, "War has begun." Zuomo only looked, not knowing what to say. This area must have experienced fierce fighting. Thinking about the Yao troops above the desolate wood reef, Zuomo didn't need to guess to know who had accomplished such destruction. His heart couldn't help but feel fear. If he hadn't escaped in time, this would have also been his outcome. Let's be careful. The road probably won't be safe. Zuomo and Gongsun Cha exchanged a look, and saw the worry in each other's eyes. The date seed ship flew into the sky and floated in midair. Where should we go? Gongsun Cha asked a very realistic question. We can only take one step and look one step. Zuomo's face was expressionless, but his voice was full of helplessness. We aren't familiar with Little Mountain Jie, so let's first find someone to ask where the other Jie rivers of Little Mountain Jie are. Are there even still people in Little Mountain Jie? Gongsun Cha's words made Zuomo's breathing uncontrollably stop. He turned around and saw a matter-of-fact expression on Gongsun Cha's soft face. For some reason, a cold chill seeped into his heart. His first response was he definitely could not bully Gongsun Shidi in the future. This guy was definitely vicious and devious. But Zuomo clearly wasn't a nice person either. Then our days are at an end. Just wait for others to come back to clean us up. Gongsun Cha giggled, and didn't speak. Holding up his chin, he was thinking of something. Luckily, Gongsun Cha's words were not proven right. On the 3rd day, they encountered living xiuzhe. But when they saw the messy battlefield, Zhuemo could only say, let's wait. The date seed ship shrunk back into the clouds, and secretly gazed at the fighting below. The two groups of Xiuzha were fighting, talismans and flying swords all over the air. Most of the people had a cultivation of Ningmai, only a rare few in Juji. Chun Yuqing only looked for a little while before turning to think about his husbandry. He wasn't interested in fighting and killing. Zhuemo and Gongsun Cha were so bored they were yawning. Why don't we do another round of war chess? Gongsun Cha asked. Zhuemo swept him with a look and shook his head. No business first. Gongsun Cha had become their strongest defensive force now. In the 3 months, this militant had improved with astounding speed, becoming more vicious and experienced in the art of commanding. The number of Ling beasts that had been ruined could not be counted. In his hands, the 3 golden armored guards could be called specters of war. Of course, Zhuemo's wallet had also become fuller. Having seen the strong Yao army, having seen the strong Ling beasts under the water like the Moon-Eye Blackwater beast, especially after seeing the grand performances of the 3 golden armor guards under Gongsun Shidi's command, the fight in front of them could not stir their interest. Thinking it over, Zhuemo still decided to not wait. Go get them to stop. All right. Gongsun Cha clearly didn't have any interest in opponents of this level. The two seemed to have completely forgot one of them was Ningmai, and the other Juji, while the 2 groups down there were mostly Ningmai. The 3 golden armor guards that had been holding their swords moved and disappeared from Gongsun Cha's side. Ma Fan carefully maintained his distance from the others. 50 zhang to 100 zhang was his best attack range. In this range of distance, his sword scripture could reach its maximum power. Compared to the great majority, his luck was pretty good, and he had found the remains of a sword scripture. This sword scripture did not have a name, and the contents were nearly all lost, but the remains were enough for him to survive until now. It really was troublesome. He carefully controlled his rhythm, occasionally glancing out of the corner of his eye at his fellows. Luckily, this group's situation wasn't bad. His heart relaxed slightly. Before this, he had always been alone. When he had encountered the Yao army passing by, seeing that battle that had no meaning, he understood that it was not possible for one person to survive in these troubled times. He had joined this little group. But how many times had he fought after joining this group? He didn't quite remember. After the Yao army left, Little Mountain Jia's society had collapsed and turned to chaos. Out of nowhere, he saw 3 golden lights out of the corner of his eye. There was an ambush. His heart shocked, he didn't hesitate in turning and running. His feet moved continuously, and his entire person was covered in a pile of fake and real illusions. The illusory movement method that he relied on to save his life. The opponent 60 zhang away from him had suddenly lost his opponent, his face full of shock, not understanding the situation. The 3 golden lights were like 3 sharp arrows that pierced straight into the people fighting. Pia pia pia. The rapid blows sounded out like rain hitting a banana leaf. The sounds rang in Ma Fan's ears as he ran furiously, his scalp prickled. It was troublesome now. He was still quite confident in his speed. The sword scripture that he cultivated might have been incomplete, but the strongest parts were the illusory movement method and the 3 sword moves. The illusory sword method had saved his life a few times already. He rejoiced inside that he had luckily saved some energy before. Otherwise, he would meet his death today. Just as he was thinking, the thundering crashes suddenly stopped. A strong feeling of danger appeared. Oh, his crack. A golden figure appeared in front of him out of thin air. The speed so quick that he didn't even manage to see the person's features. Troublesome. His feet changed direction and ran in another direction. His crack. Another golden figure appeared in front of him. Trouble. At the same time, a hiss crack sounded behind him. I surrender. He raised both of his hands. However, the other clearly did not pay attention to him. His neck hurt, his vision darkened, and then he was unconscious. When he opened his eyes again, he released a breath. He hadn't died. However, when he completely opened his eyes, his heart went back up again. A gold fighter. He suddenly remembered what had happened before he was unconscious. This was really troublesome now. He finally managed to see what the golden people looked like. Their entire body was covered in golden scale armor. Under the sun, the dense golden scales rippled with golden light. The eyes under the golden scale armor were cold and murderous. Ma Fan did not doubt that if he dared to make a wrong move, the golden scale warriors would use that exaggeratedly large flame-red broadsword to slice off his head. Wait, heavens! His eyes blanked for an extremely short moment. Flames surrounded the exaggerated red broadsword. The golden-scaled warriors had thrust the sword into the ground. The soil around the tip of the sword slowly became black. 4th grade. This was a 4th grade broadsword. Ma Fan had worked alone for so long. From this experience, he had developed a great understanding of the market for these kinds of things. Naturally had his own methods for judging talismans. This broadsword was not ordinary. This was not what shocked him. Even if there was the addition of the golden-scaled armor that looked to have high defense power, he wouldn't feel shocked. What shocked him was what was on the 3. No wonder they could catch up to him. The thunder-flowing light wings, one of the most famous 4th grade flying talismans that could be brought on the market. It had appeared countless times in his dreams. If he had the thunder-flowing light wings, if they were added to his illusory movement method. Oh, he had the confidence he could escape from any Xiuzha under Jindan. His eyes flashed across the hands resting on the hilt of the sword. A light blue pair of gloves embroidered with a little elephant. 10,000 appearances gloves. The best love of body xiao. If you had those, you could tear animals apart with your bare hands. His thoughts wandered. A moment later, he remembered the crashes that had come behind him before he had become unconscious. To have been smashed by a guy wearing 10,000 appearances gloves. He shook and woke up. But when his eyes flashed across the snake pupil that was so cold and emotionless on the belt that the golden-scaled warriors were wearing, his body uncontrollably tensed again. Snake pupil belt. His eyes unconsciously landed on the pair of feet closest to him. The slightly delicate boots were slightly strange being paired with the glittering golden armor. But when Ma Fan's gaze landed on the little sword on the shoes and the big dipper surrounding it, he only had one thought in his head. It really was troublesome now. Don't just look. Just sit up. A very young voice came from behind him. He hurriedly rolled up. He saw an expressionless face. It really was expressionless. The entire face seemed to be paralyzed. He had never seen such a strange face before. The thin body with this wooden face, it looked like a zombie. However, this zombie was covered in valuable talismans. Ma Fan instantly woke up. He had heard before that many elders would have all kinds of strange habits and preferences. But the young Xiuzha next to the zombie was quite delicate, a slight smile on his face. He looked very friendly. What are you called? The zombie opened. Ma Fan. As in troublesome? Having expected the other's response, Ma Fan hurriedly explained. Ma as in sesame, Fan for ordinary. Oh. The zombie slightly paused. Why are you guys fighting? Zhuo pretended to be profound. Elder, they want to steal our ling grains. Ma Fan didn't dare to conceal. Ling grains? Zhuo was very surprised. He had made his living from farming ling grains for several years, but had never heard people fighting over ling grains. Yes. Ma Fan perceptively detected the disbelief in Zhuo's voice and explained. Elder may not know. After the Yao army passed through, for some reason, the ling energy in the Jia has gradually decreased. Not only has cultivation has become difficult to progress, but after a period of time, our stages may actually go down. Zhuo hurriedly channeled his ling power, and found that it was as Ma Fan had said. The surrounding ling energy was very thin. He had the Mo matrix which would automatically take in ling energy from the surroundings, which was why he had not detected it. Also, Gong Sun Chao was obsessed with war chess and Chun Yu Chung with his animals. The golden armor guards did not need to cultivate, so their procession had not discovered the change in the ling energy. Zhuo suddenly shuddered in shock. Chapter 210 Collapse of Order. For the longest time, ling grains had always been used to improve the body, and as an aid to increase cultivation speed. Other than that, only those Xiuzha who were heading to Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia would use them. Due to this, The price of Ling grains was low and very steady in the long term. Otherwise, Swordsmanship would have already become rich. But right now, the Ling energy density at Little Mountain Jia had become low, and the importance of Ling grains had instantly become evident. Jingshi, Lingdan and Ling grains were the only items able to supply Ling energy. The Ling power contained in Jingshi was rich, but the impurities it contained needed to be purified and could not be used in the long term. Lingdan was made with all kinds of Ling herbs and Ling materials, so the cost was too high. The Ling energy in the Ling foods were not just easy to absorb, but did not harm the body. If used for a long time, it could even slowly change the body. Ling grains were the most widely used and basic ingredient in Ling foods. Even normal Xiuzha that did not know how to make Ling food could easily consume it. Many thoughts appeared in Zhuomo's head. Little Mountain Jia's Ling energy had become thin after the Yao army had passed through. Without a doubt, it was the fault of the Yao army. However, even though he knew this desolation was caused by the Yao army, Zhuomo had to sigh with amazement at the strength of the Yao army. Little Mountain Jia might be a small Jia, but to be able to change the Ling energy of a Jia, this power was enough to make him look up with reverence. Other than admiration, he started to think of the related problems this matter would cause. Long ago when he had been farming Ling grains, due to listening to the sound tablet frequently, he gradually learned how to follow the threads through the complex and numerous news reports to find the useful information. He knew he was only a little character. If he was going to survive in this troubled world, he needed to learn how to avoid dangers. If the situation worsened, Little Mountain Jia would become a place like Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia. A place with no Ling energy was a terrible place for Xiuzha, and Little Mountain Jia would quickly become the playground of the Yaoma. Zhuomo didn't know what the Yaoma had done, nor did he know if the change of Ling energy could be reversed. If this change could be reversed, that would be good, but if it could not be, then the situation of the Xiuzha would be terrible. Under an environment without any Ling energy, the offensive power of the Xiuzha would dramatically lessen, and the Yaoma would become fish in the water. If this became the case, the disadvantages of the Xiuzha would continuously increase. The Yaoma would only need to corrode one Jia at a time, and the Xiuzha had to retreat. Damn it. Zhuomo felt his heartbeat was increasing. Alright, he was worrying for nothing. Those large sects wouldn't stand aside. Thousands of years ago, the Xiuzha had won over the Yaoma. They could do it again this time. Zhuomo comforted himself so. His thoughts turned back to himself. The great affairs of the world were nothing to him. It was more practical to focus more his efforts on his little life. The price of Ling plant farmers was going to grow. At least he didn't have to worry about starving. This thought flashed through his head. The order of Little Mountain Jia would completely collapse. He had to quickly leave this place. He had deeply experienced the ineffectiveness of individual strength on the front lines of battle. He couldn't affect the battle. He couldn't even decide his own life. In troubled times, lives were nothing. Ma Fan's heart was fearful. The zombie elder had become silent. He felt the air in front of him had solidified, an invisible pressure making him tremble. He could clearly hear the increasing rate of his heartbeat. His mouth was drying. Why don't you all leave Little Mountain Jia? The zombie elder suddenly asked. Zhuomo finally spoke, and Ma Fan no longer felt he was suffocating. Elder, it's not that we do not want to leave Little Mountain Jia, but the Jia River towards Skywater Jia has been under someone's control. If we want to pass, we needed to pay enough Jingshi and Ling grains. Zhuomo instantly realized. He couldn't help but think that these people were much more vicious than he was. Little Mountain Jia only had two Jia rivers, one to Sky Moon Jia, one towards Skywater Jia. Blockading the Jia River towards Skywater Jia, Little Mountain Jia instantly became a dead end. No one would dare to go to Sky Moon Jia. No one has tried to kill their way out? Ma Fan grimaced. Controlling the Skywater Jia River is the strongest sect in the Jia, Clear Sky sect. Hearing this, Zhuomo shook his head. This wasn't the way to do business. To do business, there was a relationship of mutual gain. What was traded was Jingshi, but what this Clear Sky sect wanted was lives. Half of the responsibility for the collapse of order in Little Mountain Jia could be blamed on Clear Sky sect, and what they were pushing from the shadows. The Xiuzha that could not escape Little Mountain Jia, and could only continuously fight and steal both Jingshi and Ling grains from other people. Everyone would think that when they had stolen enough, they could escape this place. As for the people remaining, there was only one outcome. Zhuemo didn't feel anything guilt about profiteering from war, but what Clear Sky Sect had done was enough for him to feel cold. Clear Sky Sect's actions of pushing people to the edge of death was like playing with fire. If they were not careful, they could also fall in. However, from the outside, it was also possible to see their absolute confidence. Of course, Zhuemo was not so carefree as to worry about the life and death of other people. Clear Sky Sect was blockading the Jie River, and so was stopping their road to leave Little Mountain Jie. Would Clear Sky Sect allow him to leave? Not possible. Clear Sky Sect had no relationship with him. Would they let go of the chance to get rich? As to making it through by force? That was even more unlikely. Gongsun Cha might have been very relaxed in directing the Golden Armor Guards to sort out the 10 or so Xiuzha, but the power that large sects like Clear Sky Sect had was not something so few people that they had could face. Give Jingshi? Zhuemo did have Jingshi, but he felt that in other people's eyes, he was definitely a fat sheep. If it was him who saw such a fat sheep, there was no reason not to squeeze everything he could. How could they be content with just Jingshi? Zhuemo quickly vetoed that plan. Then there was only one remaining way: kill his way through them. If he was going to kill, it wasn't possible with just the 3 of them. Then he needed to expand the strength he had. He needed a power that the other could not dismiss. Clear Sky Sect definitely would not get in a conflict with him to the point both sides were wounded and suffered significant losses. It was very simple. Zhuemo had nothing, but Clear Sky Sect was waiting and raking in Jingshi. Ma Fan would never think that his few words had caused so many thoughts to flash through Zhuemo's mind. Zhuemo asked for some of the general information regarding Sky Water Jie River. As expected, the Sky Water Jie River was unable to be penetrated under Clear Sky Sect's management. It also killed off his last hope. Originally, he had thought about passing under the water of the Jie River by the Date Seed ship. Zhuemo was going to ask Gongsun Shidi's opinion, but when he saw Gongsun Shidi's excitement and fanaticism, he already knew the answer. This extreme militant. Muttering inside, he found Pu Yao. Is there a way to make them listen to me? Pu Yao's bloody pupil flashed and he snickered. There's very many. What Yu Xiuzha used the most is Jinji. Jinji? Zhuemo asked curiously. This isn't strange. Pu Yao said. This is mostly used on Xiu slaves, but some strict sects would use them on their disciples to stop the disciples from betraying them. So scary. Zhuemo shook. He could not imagine that he needed to be implanted with Jinji when he entered a sect. Do you want that method? Yes. Zhuemo only hesitated for a beat before deciding to take it. If it wasn't their death, it was his. There was nothing to say. First, get past the Jie River. Jinji were not moral, but it was the most effective method right now. There was no time for him to waste. Zhuemo didn't want to be still in Little Mountain Jie. When the Yao army returned, Pu Yao was strangely brisk this time, teaching Zhuemo several kinds of Jinji. It was not that easy to use Jinji, especially to Zhuemo who was only first stratum Ningmai. He spent some effort before he barely managed to learn it. This was due to his exceptional consciousness. Otherwise, Jinji were not something he could use. The pitiful Ma Fan became the first experiment. Just as Zhuemo was trying his best to put down Jinji on the unconscious Xiuzha, Pu Yao revealed an amused expression in the sea of consciousness. You must also have great anticipation. His chin was propped up in his hand, his eerie bloody eye deep as a bloody sea, as he lightly said to the gravestone. So practical. Really makes one admire him more and more. He is destined not to walk your path. You stupid self-destructive fucker. The gravestone was silent and motionless. When the last Jinji was put in, Zhuemo was exhausted. He put Jinji in all the Ningmai. In total, there were 16 people. The remainder is all down to you. Finishing, Zhuemo, whose consciousness and Ling power had all been used up, instantly took a piece of Jingshi and entered meditation. No problem. Gongsun Cha raised his handsome and feminine face, smiling and revealing his teeth. An excited light was in his eyes. At the side, Ma Fan felt a burst of coldness start at his tailbone and climb up his spine. Sky Moon Jia, desolate wood reef. Miss, Yen Yu of the 13th Corps has already reached the Jia River towards Bright Wave. The Jin Baozheng of the 6th Corps has reached the Jia River to South Beauty Jia. On the road, the two troops have not found any suspicious targets. The middle-aged man respectfully reported. They've moved pretty quickly. Mushi said faintly. The net has already been cast. The remainder is to slowly search. Be more attentive. Yes, the middle-aged person sternly responded. He hesitated and then said, Miss, we've found signs of MO activity. MO. At the side, Yan Feng's expression changed slightly, and he shouted. Mushi's gaze slightly narrowed. She raised her head to ask, have they determined who it is? To be able to go through the blood Jia cracks, it can only be MO under Brigadier. The shock on Yan Feng's face did not disappear. Which Moon MO Colonel? Why did he come? Does he have the same goal as us? Why is it not possible? Mushi glanced at Yan Feng. You've missed a possibility. For example, a true MO Brigadier that has sealed their own power. The face of the middle-aged person changed. Instantly make an investigation. Mushi said decisively. Even if he is a true MO Brigadier, do not worry. It would be best to establish communication with him. Maybe he could help us. Yes, the middle-aged man accepted his orders. Seeing the worry on her subordinate's face, Mushi smiled. Don't worry too much, no matter if it is a Moon MO Colonel or a true MO Brigadier, they have the same enemy as us. Mushi's features could only be called clean, but this smile seemed to have a special power to make others calm down. Miss is right, the middle-aged man said with a smile. Chapter 211 Trash and Poor Ghosts. Ymo looked at the dozen or so unfamiliar faces in front of him. Some of the people were terrified, but more of them were rebellious. He was thinking about ways that he could control this group. Presently, Little Mountain Jia was like a cage, a gladiator stadium. The surviving Xiozhia were not average. From today onwards I am your boss, the big boss. Zuomo's opening did not stir any reaction. Scorn was in most people's eyes. Zuomo had just a one straight Ningmai cultivation. In front of these people, he didn't have any qualities that he could be proud about. Zuomo didn't pay any mind to this, and kept on speaking. I believe you have all had a taste of the Jinji. I don't want to spend more time talking. My goal is very simple, to go through the Jia River. As for you trash and poor ghosts, you have nothing to be squeezed out, so I don't have much interest in you. The words were nasty to hear, but many people's wariness lowered. The expressionless person in front of them did have the qualification to say this. That date seed ship was clearly a rare Jingshur talismans. A row of 7 cinnabar pattern blue spikes as sharp as teeth, clearly from an crocodile maw. They could smell faint traces of blood from the teeth. The long and elegant body of the ship was surrounded by a ling shield that occasionally flashed with lightning as it wrapped tightly around the ship. Each person couldn't help but drool when they saw the grand talismans and flying swords the 3 golden armor guards were wearing. If it wasn't that they had Jinji in their bodies, these people who have leapt at the opportunity regardless of the risk. Even the richest person in the group was too embarrassed to open his 100 treasures pouch when facing such a grand scene. I hope everyone can have happy interactions. Of course, with your present skill level it's hard to make me happy. Zuomo was full of scorn and disdain. Look at all of you fighting so messily, even worse than wandering bandits. No finesse at all. From today onwards you all have to remember one thing. Gang fighting requires high finesse and is skilled work. You are all very lucky, Zuomo pointed at Gongsun Cha beside him. Mr. Gongsun here is the best and most famous battle general of Sky Moon Jia. He will personally teach you this profound skill. Gongsun Cha smiled shyly, but his face didn't blush at all. Chun Yuqing gaped. This boast was somewhat. When the other people's eyes landed on Gongsun Cha, all the scorn and disdain completely flew away, only leaving behind terror. Very good, Zuomo was extremely content. It seemed that Gongsun Shidi had already established enough authority with these people. Just like when one did business, after pushing for the lowest price, He needed to give the other an incentive to motivate the other person. You will be completely transformed, and you will begin a completely different life here. You do not need to worry about ambushes in the middle of the night. You do not need to think about where to escape for safety. Swordsmanship waved his arms. You don't need to worry about anything. The only worry you need to have is whether or not you can satisfy Mr. Gongsun. Swordsmanship made the last conclusion in an unconcerned tone. The Jie River will fall under our feet. Swordsmanship, feeling very good about himself, moved the group to the side as he and Gong Sun Cha started to discuss. How long would it take to train these people to have offensive power? Swordsmanship asked Gong Sun Cha. Don't know, Gong Sun Cha spread his hands. We are all novices. Swordsmanship had a headache. Gong Sun Shidi was right. Everyone here were novices, no one had any experience. Gong Sun Cha added, according to the rules of the wargame, a new troop needs to be trained for over a year to form the most basic offensive maneuvers. Also, the war games you made were all Yaoma style, not Xiuzha, so I have to slowly experiment. We don't have that much time. Swordsmanship shook his head. He didn't believe the Yaoma would give them a year. Gong Sun Cha thought for a moment. Then we can only increase the intensity of the training, or there are ways that we can use numbers to make up for lack of power. Numbers? It seems that we need a temporary base, Swordsmanship said solemnly. Swordsmanship chose a mountain valley. Before, there was a little sect here, but the people had left, so the valley did not belong to anyone. The reason he chose this place was because there were Ling veins here before. The reason that the Ling energy of Little Mountain Jia had become thin was definitely due to a problem with the Ling veins. Swordsmanship wanted to personally see what the Ling veins had become. They had encountered several groups along the way, which they completely taken down. At the beginning, it was the Golden Armor Guards. Later, Gong Sun Cha commanded the Xiuzha they had just imprisoned. Compared to the high efficiency of the 3 Golden Armor Guards, these Ningmai Xiuzha of average strength were extremely inefficient. The novice Gong Sun Cha also made many mistakes, but he was not discouraged. Swordsmanship knew that it couldn't be rushed, so he slowed down. In any case, there was still the Golden Armor Guards and the Date Seed ship in reserve. He didn't need to worry about the problem of safety. It was hard to find the chance for battle. If he didn't use it, it was really a waste. Gong Sun Cha quickly displayed his talent as a commander. Going from the complete chaos at the beginning to a full-fledged organization took only a span of 10 days. Over the span of more than 10 days, the troop had quickly expanded to 40 people. 28 Ningmai, 12 Zhuji. Swordsmanship quickly discovered that setting down Jinji was not harmless. Each Jinji required him to put a bit of his consciousness inside the body of the other. Each Jinji's Swordsmanship set would weaken his consciousness. This was not something that could be avoided. There were no free meals in this world. It was only a weirdo like him that could even set Jinji before he reached Jindan. Luckily, they did not meet large groups of Xiuzha on the road. According to Ma Fan, there were countless little groups in Little Mountain Jia, and several that were several hundred strong. Swordsmanship found it strange why the larger groups did not attack the Jia River. Later, he found out the Clear Sky sect that guarded the Jia River was supported by a Jindan. Swordsmanship was frightened. No wonder the Clear Sky sect had the confidence to monopolize the Jia River. They had a Jindan at their back. This information instantly made Swordsmanship reconsider the difficulty of breaking through the Jia River. Ningmai had 3 strata. The most important difference was the difference in the amount of Ling power inside the body. The peak of the first stratum, Ling power, was about 10 Jing. The peak of the second stratum was approximately 30 Jing. And the peak of the third stratum would shoot up to 90 Jing. Of the 28 Ningmai subordinates that Swordsmanship had, only 3 had reached the second stratum. The remainder were all first stratum Ningmai. Usually a Ningmai third stratum called individually deal with 10 first stratum Ningmai, or 3 second stratum Ningmai. Of course, this was in theory. Real life was more complex, when taking into account spells, flying swords, talismans, and offensive tactics. But if a Ningmai faced a Jindan, they could only escape. What counterattack? Winning by pitting the weak against the strong, it definitely could not appear. The difference between Jindan and Ningmai was not just the difference in Ling power, but also the difference in understanding Ling power. During the process of entering Jindan, Xiuzha would experience a deeper comprehension of the world and Ling power. The same spell before and after Jindan would be drastically different in power. The only way that Ningmai could face Jindan was to overwhelm them with numbers. As to how many people were needed for victory, both Zuemo and Gongsun Cha didn't know. Zuemo could only ask Pu Yao. Gang fighting? That isn't easy to say. Pu Yao rubbed his chin. It depends on the skill of the other side, their talisman, and the cooperation of your side. If it was those Yao soldiers? Zuemo asked. If it's a normal Jindan, then a troop of 100 night stock Yao. If the quality of the commander is not too bad, there shouldn't be a problem, Pu Yao mused. Zuemo released a breath. Good, at least it wasn't completely hopeless. He naturally knew that the group of people he had could not reach the skill level of the Yao army, but he could expand in numbers. If 100 people did not work, then 200, 300. What he was most worried about was that even numbers would not be enough to make up for the difference. Why is the Ling energy of Little Mountain Jie becoming thin? Zuemo asked Pu Yao. There are many possibilities, like Yao worms that eat Ling or blackline mushrooms. Eating Ling is a characteristic of Yaoma. Is there a way to reverse it? You can request someone that is at least Yuanying to act, and wait 10 years for recovery. Yuanying. Zuemo was speechless. The strongest Xiuzha that he had encountered up until now was in Jindan. To renew the Ling veins, it actually needed Yuanying. That was a death sentence. Something only someone in Yuanying could accomplish. Zuemo didn't feel he had any chance of success. However, he still decided to establish his base in this mountain valley. The environment around it was good. Zuemo received a large number of Yaoma military training methods from Pu Yao and dumped them on Gongsun Cha. Pu Yao was actually kind enough to remind Zuemo those were old antiques from thousands of years ago, and they should only be used as a reference. Zuemo was amused to Pu Yao's sudden change in attitude. But when Pu Yao drew out the earth energy, Zuemo, who had become unfamiliar after a period of time, instantly experienced what was life worse than death. Even though he knew it was beneficial for his body, he still wanted to cry. Drawing out the earth energy, when would it end? Ma Fan nervously stood in front of Gongsun Cha. In his eyes, the delicate and shy young master's deviousness was enough for any Yaoma to die of humiliation. No one dared to disobey his commands. Even the most vicious and rebellious of them all, Lei Peng, was as docile as a kitten in front of him. Perform every skill you know once. Do not leave anything out. Gongsun Cha's order was not complicated. Yes, Ma Fan slowly learned how to live under Gongsun Cha's command. It was very simple. What Gongsun Cha said, then he would do it. If he managed to complete the demand, then everything was wonderful. Ma Fan started to perform his spells one by one. Luckily, he had no sect or family. He only knew so many spells and quickly finished performing. Gongsun Cha was very interested in his illusory movement method and the three sword moves, and had made him repeat them several times. Ma Fan had been very worried. What if Big Boss wanted his sword scripture, and wanted him to give it up? However, he quickly found his worry was unwarranted. After Gongsun Cha recorded it down, he was sent back to training. On the second day, Ma Fan trembled as he took a jade scroll the smiling Gongsun Cha handed him. After just one look, his little face was the color of dirt. Chapter 212. Go is pragmatic. Pu Yao felt this was extremely amusing. Truthfully, he had been in Zuomo's sea of consciousness for this long, and there hadn't been one thing that was amusing as what was happening right now. In the thousands of years he lived, he had not encountered something more amusing than this. A Zhuji Xiuzha who had never studied anything in the area. Oh, he was also a butcher, had started to study how to become a battle general. He had never heard of something like this. Even during the Great War from thousands of years ago, he was very familiar with battle generals. In the camp of Xiuzha, without almost any exception, there were two ways that battle generals were trained. The first was a battle general that was specifically nurtured by large sects, and the other were battle generals that underwent countless battles and had gradually comprehended the skills. The majority were from the first method. In that 1,000-year war, almost 70% of the famous battle generals in the Xiuzha camp had been from the large sections. They learned all kinds of knowledge from when they were young. Even the spells they learned were specialized to command in battle. The second kind was the other 30%. In reality, if one considered all battle generals and not only the famous generals, the difference would be larger. Not having been taught from birth and having to climb up step by step from the lowest level, battle generals formed by the second method were all geniuses. The price they paid were much higher than the first kind. It looked as though that Gong Sun Cha had great hope to become one of those. Yet reality was always cruel. Being of low status and wanting to become a battle general, these individuals had to meet one condition: having great individual power. Disregarding the talent to command, the battle generals that were the second kind had talent in cultivation that was comparable to any other Xiuzha. The reason was very simple. If they had no strength, they would not survive through battle. If they couldn't survive, how could they climb up? Wanting to become a battle general but being of low status, they had to repeatedly climb over mountains of corpses in order to accumulate fame and experience. Then there would be compliance to his orders. No one in little groups of 7 or 8 would be willing to put their lives in the hands of an individual that could die anytime, much less larger troops. This was also why Pu Yao thought that Gong Sun Cha hadn't had a chance. Gong Sun Cha was only a butcher, a Zhuji butcher. Pu Yao could easily see that Gong Sun Cha's talent in cultivation was very average. Even if he had many lingdan and talismans, he wouldn't accomplish too much in cultivation. But Pu Yao did not immediately dismiss his ability to become a battle general, even if he had to learn on his own. The most important reason was Zhuo Mo's support. His talent wasn't in question. If Gong Sun Cha had been in a large sect from birth, and he ultimately became a battle general, Pu Yao would not find it strange. After playing war chess for so many days, Gong Sun Cha had improved quickly. What really surprised him was that Zhuo Mo trusted Gong Sun Cha so much. Even Pu Yao had to admit that Zhuo Mo's eyes were wondrously accurate. In his mind, Zhuo Mo's talent wasn't bad, but it definitely wasn't the best. However, over these 2 years, even with the stumbling and tripping, Pu Yao found to his shock that Zhuo Mo's progress was far outside of his predictions. Part of it was that he had been involved, but the speed of improvement of core disciples from large sects would rarely reach Zhuo Mo's level, and they would receive more aid than Zhuo Mo. But Zhuo Mo's physical talent really could not be called great. This was what Pu Yao marveled at. As he kept on thinking about it, Pu Yao felt that it was all caused by Zhuo Mo's viewpoint. Zhuo Mo's viewpoint and mentality were very strange, and very different from normal people. No matter if it was cultivation, battle, or interpersonal relationships. It was easy for others to see him as the classical utilitarian. Clever, greedy and money-grubbing, but he would sometimes do something that Pu Yao would find stupid and irrational. Yet these idiotic actions would usually produce good results. Originally, Pu Yao did not have a good opinion of Gong Sun Cha's prospects, but considering Zhuo Mo, he was suddenly filled with interest and anticipation. It was so amusing. Compared to Pu Yao's attitude of idling and watching from the sidelines, Zhuo Mo was so busy his feet never touched the ground. He had been nagged by Chun Yucheng to the point that he had to build a beast pool. They wouldn't stay for very long in Little Mountain Jia, but it wouldn't be too short. If they used the time well, they could produce a few batches of ling beasts. Chun Yucheng had been studying for a long time on the date seed ship, and he had many ideas. However, without the beast pool, all ideas were nothing. Xixiang, build a beast pool. Chun Yucheng's words were like a ghost haunting Zhuo Mo's ears constantly. After repeated requests, Zhuo Mo complied. His wealth was large. A beast pool was expensive, but not too expensive. However, the work was not easy. No one could help him, especially when Chun Shidi had a pile of ideas he wanted to suggest. To realize these ideas, he needed to modify the beast pool. The modifications meant that the work he had to do increased dramatically. It meant that he needed to reconstruct it. Even more, Chun Yucheng Shidi's ideas would occasionally change. Each time Zhuo Mo wanted to slack off, Chun Yucheng's haunting voice would float to him again. Xixiang, just change a bit, just change a bit. When the beast pool was finished, It was like there was a pin in Zhuomo's behind. He ran away as far as possible. When an obedient person started to torture other people, it would make them feel hopeless. Chun Yuqing Shidi began to work on the beast pool. Gongsun Shidi was working on the group of Xiuzhe. And Zhuomo started to work on himself. His studies into formations needed a large amount of time. He also added another job for himself. He found the Ling vein and gathered some of the black line mushrooms that ate Ling. He was very interested in them. Other than that, cultivation was something that could not be missed. His consciousness had shrunk dramatically after setting down the Jinji. Thinking about the tactic of battle by relying on numbers, he deeply felt that increasing his consciousness was his most important priority at the moment. Embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation became something he needed to do every day. After his consciousness manifested, his sea of consciousness transformed. The enchanting flames in the sea of consciousness had disappeared. The number of stars in the sky had increased to 10. The sword river still was the same. He had not increased his sword essence. Looking at the stars in the sea of consciousness, Zhuomo suddenly recalled the time that he forged Lil Pagoda, and the stardust that the stars had produced which continuously permeated his consciousness. In the void above his consciousness, the 10 stars hung. Other than the one star that was somewhat bright, the rest were dim. Thinking about the speed that the stars sprayed out stardust, Zhuomo felt it would take years for the stardust to permeate all of his consciousness. That is star source. Pu Yao sat on the gravestone and raised his head to look at the 10 stars above his head. What is star source? This question had always been buried in Zhuomo's mind. Seeing that Pu Yao seemed to have intentions of explaining today, he played along and asked. Star source is the origin of the spiritual power, Pu Yao slowly said. You can also think of them as the crystals formed from Ling power. Don't you Xiuzhe like to talk about how many Jing of Ling power? 10-star spiritual power? Zhuomo asked in response. Or you can see them as the springs that birth spiritual power. 10 stars mean that you have 10 springs that can produce spiritual power. One time, I saw that these stars could spray out silver star dust. What is that? Zhuomo couldn't help but ask in curiosity. What did you say? Pu Yao suddenly opened his bloody pupil, his spine straightening, changing from his lazy attitude. Zhuomo feels slightly terrified under Pu Yao's bloody gaze. Inside, he wondered if the other had started to go crazy again. Is something wrong? Zhuomo weakly asked. After a beat, he saw Pu Yao say dazedly, the second consciousness. He forcefully shook his head as he refocused. He looked deeply at Zhuomo. The stardust that you saw is a purer form of spiritual power. We usually call it spirit dust. These 10 stars, bright and dull, are different. The brightest star can produce the most star spirit dust. The speed that it produces spiritual power is the fastest. Zhuomo didn't really understand. Pu Yao didn't attend to him, and kept on talking. What Yao cultivate are the laws of the world. All objects in the world all contain the laws of the world. All objects in the world can cultivate their spirit. Stars are just one of them. The path of the stars is profound and cryptic. There are very few Yao that walk the path of star spirit cultivation. Hearing this, Zhuomo suddenly had a slightly bad premonition. What spirit cultivation are you? What I chose is sky fire spirit cultivation. Pu Yao smiled, his teeth showing. Zhuomo interjected. Then why am I star spiritual cultivation? Because what you cultivate is embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation. Pu Yao snickered. I hadn't thought that this embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation is actually a star spirit cultivation. I was fooled by the name. He muttered in a small voice. I had expected it was trash, hadn't thought that it was actually high level, such a loss. And fire suddenly shot up from Zhuomo's heart. He was enraged, pointing at Pu Yao's nose as he swore. You trash, you gave something you hadn't tested for Yi to cultivate. You actually wanted to use trash to con Yi. Yi isn't finished with you. Don't be like this. Pu Yao wasn't angry and said, chuckling. In any case, you didn't lose. Look, you even managed to cultivate to 10 stars. In 2 years, you've gotten to manifestation. This speed is very fast. You, Zhuomo pointed. Hearing Pu Yao's heartless words became so angry his finger trembled. Do you want to know how to cultivate next? Seeing the situation, Pu Yao crisply turned to temptation. Yes, Zuomo did not hesitate in answering, all his anger flying away. Pu Yao was not shocked in the slightest by Zuomo's 180-degree turn in attitude. This guy was very pragmatic. That's right. Pu Yao smiled. I can tell you and I can give you even more help. But I have a small request. Say it. Zuomo was very familiar with Pu Yao's conduct as well. I want the golden core of the Jindan of Clear Sky sect. Zuomo was dumbstruck. When he managed to respond, he instantly jumped up. Are you crazy? Jindan. Go get it yourself if you want it. Run to a little Ningmai like myself to say you want the golden core of a Jindan. Humph humph. The other can turn me to dust with one slap. Finishing, he turned and left, waving his hand. If you want to play, play by yourself. Ji won't play with you. Pu Yao's expression was calm and not angry. At a 5th grade sword scripture. Zuomo pretended not to hear, and continued to walk forward. At a 5th grade movement method. Zuomo was not moved at all. His steps not changing. I'll make 7 more golden armor guards for you. Zuomo decided to ignore him. And another move of little thousand-leaf hands. Zuomo instantly stopped his body, and turned to walk towards Pu Yao. What to do? Chapter 213 Ma Fan. Reaching target, Ma Fan felt very troubled. No matter if it was his Ningmai second stratum cultivation, or the nameless scripture he cultivated, they made him one of the top practitioners in this group. But to someone as afraid of trouble as he was, this prestige wasn't a good thing. He became one of the important prospects to be nurtured. The requirements for his training far surpassed everyone else's. Everyone looked at him with gazes full of sympathy. That's right, it really was sympathy. The training for everyone was extremely strict, so the training regime of an important prospect, Ma Fan's, could only be imagined. However, other than sympathy, they did not feel any joy at his misfortunes. They didn't even have the power to save themselves. Everyone in the camp put all their strength into furiously training. If they did not complete their training, their outcome would be extremely tragic. On the first day, several people did not obey. But now when everyone saw the somewhat feminine, delicate, and shy youth, they could not control the deep terror that came out of their heart. The terrified screams that meant a fate worse than death haunted their ears. The inhuman state of the people who didn't listen frequently haunted their thoughts. Whenever they thought of it, these people that were used to seeing storms of blood couldn't help but tremble. Devious, vicious, and cold-blooded, he thought of a life like grass. These words were not enough to describe this seemingly harmless and beautiful youth in front of them. Even the most rebellious person was docile and obedient in front of him. This handsome youth might be strict, but if you could successfully finish your training, nothing would happen. He would never try to punish you for unsubstantiated reasons. He didn't take your talismans or scriptures. After discovering this point, everyone competed to be first, afraid of being slow, and having to taste that terrible torture that was worse than death. Ma Fan felt his life was hopeless. Each day was endless training. Heavens! How can this be completed? It hadn't been long since he had broken through to the second stratum of Ningmai. The Ling power in his body was around 15 Jing. The content of his training focused on only one thing, one of his sword moves. That's right, just the one move. Of the 3 sword moves that he knew, the strongest was the illusory shadowless sword of destruction. The power of this move was very high. Most important was that it did not cause Ling power ripples when it was cast. Without a sound or wind, it never attracted the eye, but it was surprisingly powerful. In reality, after learning it, he had only used it in combat 2 or 3 times before now. He usually was afraid of trouble, and rarely engaged in combat. If he saw the situation was not right, he would quickly use the illusory movement method to escape. His training content was just this move. However, it wasn't so simple. Gong Sun Cha had 2 demands. The first was that he could use this killing move when he was using the illusory movement method. The second was that he had to be able to cast this move 3 times or more in the span of 15 minutes. And in 1 hour he had to be able to use this move 7 or more times. When he first received the training regime, it was normal for his face to be ugly. With his present cultivation, if he cast illusory shadowless sword of destruction, he couldn't do it when he was in motion, and could only cast it 4 times. After casting it, he needed to rest for a while before casting again. This clearly short of Gong Sun Cha's demands. Ma Fan didn't know how Gong Sun Cha had thought of such a fatal demand. Wasn't it just asking for his life? He had once gathered his courage to request Gong Sun Cha to change it. What he received was Gong Sun Cha's light words. Cultivate well, for putting your life on the line is better than losing it. When Ma Fan heard this, and his heart instantly became cold. With no other solution, he could only train with his life on the line. From the time he had started his cultivation, he had never cultivated so hard before. Using the illusory movement method at the same time as the illusory shadowless sword of destruction. This was something that he had never thought of before. With no sect, to be able to become a Ningmai second stratum, Ma Fan's talent in cultivation was not low, and his intelligence was not bad. Of course, even he could see that if he could use his movement method and sword move at the same time, the power of the move would increase greatly. But with his personality of avoiding trouble, if he thought of this in the past, he would have gave up after trying a few times. But now the blade hung above his neck. If he retreated slightly, his little life would be gone. There was no room to change his current trajectory. He could only push forward. His Ling power was so expended that he almost spat blood. His body was sore and soft that it felt like his skeleton was coming apart. For the sake of his little life, he must cultivate. 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 He had cultivated to the point that he wanted to throw up when he saw a flying sword. He actually succeeded. A flickering figure fluttered uncertainly in the air, and without warning, several explosions suddenly occurred in the air. Boom. The ground 50 zhang away from him seemed to have been struck by something invisible, suddenly exploding open, sending dirt flying. The people who had been training nearby were alarmed, and put out their Ling shields. Pia pia pia. The flying dirt hit the Ling shields like rain. Those with weaker cultivation even felt their Ling shields shake. Everyone was shocked. When they looked at the ground, they saw 7 deep holes in a row, each hole that was 2 zhang deep, crashing down through the air, yet still so powerful. If this was someone's body, their eyes as they looked at Ma Fan instantly changed. This guy definitely had been holding back before. However, some with nimbler minds had happy expressions. Right now, everyone was on the same rope. Ma Fan getting stronger was good for all of them. At least, the probability of keeping their lives was now higher. Gong Sun Cha also had a surprised expression. He hadn't thought that Ma Fan would be the first to achieve his demands. In his plan, Ma Fan was the primary attacker, or rather, it was better to say he was the ambusher. With the unpredictable illusory movement method, and the undetectable but powerful, illusory shadowless sword of destruction, that could kill with one blow, wasn't he born for ambushing? It was a pity that while the illusory body movement method was hard to follow, but it was easy for people to guard against, lowering the abruptness of an ambush. If there was a movement method that could completely conceal him, then Ma Fan's power would be even greater. Gong Sun Cha felt he needed to think thoroughly about how to use Ma Fan to his greatest potential. He may look confident and calm in front of these Xiuzha, but in reality, his mind had been tense from the beginning. He was a beginner, and had not been trained. Zhou Shixiang trusted him, so Shixiang certainly wouldn't blame him for making mistakes in the beginning. However, though Gong Sun Cha might look soft, he was actually very proud. Would he permit himself to make mistakes at such an important time? All of his days were spent on these Xiuzha. He had long stopped his own cultivation. He disliked failure. Ma Fan looked in disbelief at the 7 deep holes in front of him on the ground, his mind blank. He did it. He really did it. Was this really something he had done? Dazedly landing on the ground, his mind was wandering. He had never thought that he could really do it. He gritted his teeth and persisted in training because he was forced to. But when he really met the goals which he never could have possibly conceived of before, a different emotion filled his heart. Looking at the flying sword in his hand, a seed called confidence gradually sprouted in his heart. Right now, do not create new stars. You cannot bite off more than you can chew. You should spend more time to temper these 10 stars, so they will be as bright as your brightest star. The stars are the source of your spiritual power, and the brighter they are, the more spiritual power they produce, especially stardust. The brighter the star, the more pure the star dust they spray out. This alone will be more beneficial to you. In meditation, Zhuomo's mind had retreated to his sea of consciousness. The effect that Zhuomo's personal power could have in this battle was pitifully small. It wasn't even as high as the 3 golden armor guards. Luckily, he was never a person that relied on brute power to eat. He had a daring idea. Chapter 214. A Mountain of Problems. The art of multiple people fighting less. That was gang fighting. Gang fighting, that was fighting in groups. In Zhuomo's understanding, it was ridiculous to depend on a person that had been only studying Ling grains 2 years ago to study battle tactics. However, if it was about gang fighting, he still had some real experience. There were many disciples in the outer sect. Of course, there were those that were bullies. Adding on that the little factions were like trees in a forest. While fights didn't happen every day, there would be an occasional one. Having seen many gang fights, the winning side always had certain qualities. First, more people was better. This was the most basic tenet of gang fighting. Gang fighting, if there weren't enough people, it would be embarrassing to call it a gang. More people won over fewer people. That was the most common outcome. The second was bravery and viciousness. Bravery was not being afraid. The other side had more people, but their side dared to put their life on the line. The people who were not afraid of putting everything into a fight dominated everything around them. Other people didn't dare to get close. Even experts wanted to stay alive. As to viciousness, it meant being unconditional in attacking. Once an attack started, one could not attend to their own back and be timid. The blow coming from the vicious had to reach rock bottom. After flipping over several people, the other side would be discouraged. Next was cooperation. The essence of group fighting was using more people fighting fewer people. Then how could the smaller group win? That required cooperation. A group of cooperative people defeating disordered rabble 3 times their number was very normal occurrence. The last was that the weapons were appropriate. Look at Ling's sect. They were the epitome of this. However, even the best talismans and flying swords depended on the people using it. Idiots with talismans were still idiots. After concluding all this, Zhuomo's thoughts became nimble. It took time to increase numbers, and it was a task that could not be hurried. Regarding bravery was vicious. Zhuomo felt that it was pretty hard to attain. This group of people would be very unwilling, and were only forced to follow due to his jinji. Cooperation could be considered, but this was Gong Suncha's problem. If he interfered, he might not have any positive benefit to the situation. What he could only work on weapons. He may have some talismans, but it wouldn't be better than what these people had searched for and schemed for themselves. He could only think about other objects. He actually did find something. Yin fire bead. The power of the Yin fire bead did not have to be said. He had never tried it on a Jindan, but there definitely was not a problem with people under Jindan. If one wasn't enough against Jindan, then 2. If that was still not enough, then everyone could throw them together. Each person throwing 8 or 10, surely even Jindan couldn't bear it. He thought uncertainly. However, he did feel that it was possible. In the past, he had always been worried that the matter of him knowing how to make Yin beads would be revealed. Now that it was a matter of life or death, he threw those concerns to the back of his mind. If it spread, then there was a possibility of people targeting him, but that was a matter for the future. If he couldn't leave Little Mountain Jia, then there was no future. This idea made his mind jump. He inventoried the Yin fire beads that he had. There were 10 or so. He shook his head, discontent with this number. For Ningmai, Zhuomo felt 10 was enough, but the other was Jindan. That was a Jindan. Just thinking about it, Zhuomo felt respect rise, and his desire for battle decreased. Other people may not know the strength of Jindan, but how could Zhuomo not know? He had suffered greatly under Xi and Yan Shirshu's hands, and had a clear understanding of Jindan. If it was just him alone, Zuo definitely would not be able to wound Xi and Yan Shirshu even with things 10 times more powerful than Yin fire beads. This was because he basically could not throw them and have them touch Xi and Yan Shirshu's body. But if it was gang fighting, Zuo thought there was a small chance. In a battle, there would be many talismans and flying swords flying. Before the Yin fire bead was activated, it was not eye-catching. If the other was not on their guard, it was easy to get tricked. Zuo brought this problem up with Pu Yao. Of all these people, only this guy had fought Jindan experts before. Your idea is somewhat interesting. Pu Yao had an interested expression. Seeing Pu Yao's expression, Zuo knew that it had potential, but this requires Yin fire beads. Where can I get more Yin fire beads? You need to find a place with Yin fiends. Pu Yao didn't have a solution. Find someone familiar with the area and ask. Hearing Pu Yao say so, Zuo knew that there was no place with Yin fiends nearby. Otherwise, with Pu Yao's abilities, he could have immediately pointed to the location. He could only go ask the Xiozha of Little Mountain Jia, and see if any one of them knew if there were places with Yin fiends. When he walked into the camp, he was shocked by the heated atmosphere. 20-something Ningmai cultivating together, the presence was shocking, his little heart beating rapidly. After a long while he recovered. Seeing Gong Sun Cha talking with Ma Fan in the corner, he hurriedly ran over. When he neared, he heard Gong Sun Cha lecturing Ma Fan. Your pathing just now was not correct. You have to remember your role. You have no set location, so you cannot stop. You need to be more nimble. Understand? More nimble. Swimming between them, search for chances. You also need to notice to retract your presence. You need the enemy to not notice your existence. Notice the opportunities. Do not deliberately search to kill with one move. You are the main attacker, yes, but you have fellows. They are not just decorations. At this time, your best chance is to attack. Yes, you cannot kill him, but he will reveal openings and will give your fellows opportunities. Other than killing enemies, you need to learn how to make opportunities for your fellows. If you decide to attack, don't do those unnecessary flourishes. You have to be more straightforward. Use more force. One move. You only have the chance for one move. Zuo had never seen Gong Sun Cha so fierce. That's right, full of fierceness. This guy who usually looked shy and weak was bellowing a whole bunch of stuff out. Seeing Ma Fan's nervousness, not daring to miss a word, Zuo's heart was suddenly full of sympathy. After the lecture, Gong Sun Cha waved and indicated for Ma Fan to continue cultivating. Everyone is working hard, Zuo said with feeling. Gong Sun Cha nodded. And when they can sell their lives, that will be almost enough. Ma Fan, who had been preparing to leave, staggered and almost fell. Zuo mumbled in response and asked uncertainly, "Do you need help?" He had completely thrown everything on Gong Sun Cha's shoulders. Even he was slightly ashamed. Seeing Gong Sun Cha so busy his feet didn't really touch the ground, who would not feel a bit of shame? Gong Sun Cha tilted his head to think and asked, "Can you make a kind of talisman?" "What talisman do you want?" Speaking of talismans, Zuo felt his bravery rise. These spectacular and eye-dazzling things in the camp, he could understand if they were by themselves, but he didn't understand when they were put together. But if it was about talismans, he was good at that. Zuo completely forgot that he was also self-taught in forging talismans. In total, Xi and Yan Shirshu hadn't thought him that many times. Having just felt some shame, Zuo instantly found a place he could express his value and make up for his deficiencies, his mind becoming alert. Oh, talismans like the necklace. Gong Sun Cha took off the same heart necklace on his neck. Zuo scratched his head. He understood what Gong Sun Cha meant, to pass orders. Pu Yao had spoken about this problem with him. The Yao armies used the consciousness to pass on commands, the Mo armies used the Mo matrix to pass on commands, and Xiozha used seals. The same heart necklace could connect the user to 6 of the fellows, which meant commanding 6 other people. Clearly, 6 people could not satisfy Gong Sun Cha's demands. Zuo agreed with that. Facing Jindan, it probably needed several hundred. How to direct all of them then? The battlefield changed every second. If they could not respond immediately, then there was only death. Zuo hadn't expected that he couldn't solve the problem of the Yin fiends, and instead found another problem out of his trip to the camp. However, he understood the importance of the matter could not be delayed. He immediately passed on the matter of the Yin fiend grounds to Gong Sun Cha, and rushed away with the same heart necklace. However, before he left, a batch of Jingshi and Ling grains was scraped off him. He had to rejoice now that Master had gotten large amounts of supplies for him, when Wukong Sword Sect had sent him to the desolate wood reef. They were used to great effect now. High-intensity training like this consumed enormous amounts of Jingshi and Ling grains. Zuo was doubtful if he could manage it if there were 100 or more people. However, this was not the time to think of it. The most pressing problem was what Gong Sun Cha had thrown over. Large-scale group fighting. Xiuzhi used seals to pass commands. If it was forging, Zuo dared to try, but if it was making seals, he could do nothing. However, Zuo was not a conservative person. This world would always have ways. Even more, he had a model on his hands. The effect of this same heart necklace was not any different than seals, but it was a talisman. Zuo started to think of how to replicate the same heart necklace. The number of people the same heart necklace could command was much lower, and could not reach Gong Sun Cha's demands. However, he thought of a method. 7 people to a troop, the leader of the troop in command. The troop leader would wear 2 necklaces, one to direct the troop members, the other receiving orders from the rank above. That way, wouldn't everything be connected? Of course, the usability of this method had to wait for the objects to be made before it could be tested. The same heart necklace was an upper 4th grade talisman. Theoretically, it was beyond of Zuo's ability, but thinking that he had patted his chest just now, there was actually no one except him that could solve the problem. To be able to qualify as upper 4th grade, the forging skill of the same heart necklace was very high. There were more than 100 formations in the little necklace. These formations were either by themselves, or they were connected with others. That was the focus of Zuo's study. Only by familiarizing himself with these formations and chewing through all of them, he could understand how the same heart necklace could connect minds. Only by understanding the theory could he then copy it. This wasn't a small task. However, as it related to his wealth and little life, Zuo definitely wouldn't slack in the least. He would even eat this necklace if needed, much less just study it. All in. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.